Don't adjust your sets. You're in the right place. It's the right time. 8 p.m. HLTV Confirmed episode 11. We're back, and I know that you guys have really just been waiting all week for another episode, especially considering who our guest is tonight. But let's do a quick little summary of what's on tonight's show. We're going to be talking about the complexity reports, 100 Thieves news, obviously another player looking to add a sixth. That's Vitality. The ESL New York results for IEM. We're going to be looking at DreamHack Open Fall, the RMR event for Europe, which is kicking on off. And we're going to be looking into 2021, see what's on the card, see what's on the agenda, check in with that again. But obviously, we have a big guest on the show today. That is gla1ve. That's who you're going to be hearing from. But before we get to him, we need to check in with our producer, Lucas. Lucas, how many fires right now?
Nothing. Everything is running perfectly, and I'm very happy.
All right, he's just jinxed the rest of the show. So if everything breaks, we all know what's going to happen there, ladies and gentlemen. Lucas will be fired. It's kind of like a South Park gag where Kenny just kept getting killed, but we just keep firing Lucas. So that's what we do here. Prof, if you had to fire Lucas, what would be the worst reason to do so?
The worst reason?
Yeah.
How do you mean the worst reason?
Like, not that he fucked up, like Sankey did good and we fire him anyway.
The time he showed up in the camera after the show got crashed.
That was a good reason. At least we got his face.
Why
I think
did you
the
bring
worst
this
reason
up again?
The worst reason would be just because he's Danish and we have a lot of Danish people. So
That's a good reason.
That would be a bad reason to do it, I guess.
Yeah, well, we're going to stick away from those. Striker, you said that you ate something full of sugar. What was it?
It's a Czech thing. It's called cadiaN. It's like a it's
Sorry?
like a bread. I don't know how to explain it. It's like a swirly bread thing that has like shitloads of sugar around it. Basically, it's just
chimney,
it's pretty bad.
chimney or something.
Yeah,
the chimney
something
cake. I think
I don't
that's
know
what it's called.
what it's
If
called.
you went to any like Eastern European country like Budapest or any of these cities, they make it everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just a piece of bread with sugar, literally.
Like shitloads of sugar.
And you're in a comatose state because of that. Now, before I introduce gla1ve, we're going to run this bumper and then we're going to get underway. So hit it, Lucas. Well, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we have to introduce our guest for this evening. And it is, let's say, we can start with a lot of different things to say about this man, but he is a man, he is a myth, he is a bit of a legend. I would even go as far as saying probably the greatest in-game leader in CSGO history, maybe even in CS history. A four-time major winner, an absolute legend of the scene. gla1ve, how the fuck are you doing, mate?
I'm doing really well, thank you. Especially after you just said those words to me. Thank you very much.
I've got to say some nice things to kick off the show. I've been learning
That's
from
true.
Machine. He's
That's
got this
true.
really good technique. What he does is he always starts off with some form of a compliment, and then he gets into like all the hard questions. So I'm trying to learn from him, but I don't really have any hard questions for you here this evening. I usually am the nice guy. I let Prof and Striker be like the bad guys and ask all the dirty questions. But I think what we may as well do, mate, is just jump straight into it. I'm going to summarize some of the things that happened earlier in the year for people who aren't familiar with it. You obviously took a bit of a break, and what was cited back then, as per HLTV.org's news, was it was medical leave, as per their headline. Yugi came in, took your shoes. Obviously, now we know that there's a 7-man roster situation going over there with Astralis. You're back. Apparently, Xyp9x's is coming back at some point as well.
Yes.
But let's kick it off with you returning. How did you go? Okay, I'm ready to come back now.
Yeah, so I talked to Astralis and to the team about how long of a break I needed. I told them I think that 3 months would be good. I talked to a doctor as well about it, and she also said that 3 months is what they usually do. So yeah, we set a date of starting the 18th of May, and then I'm coming back the 18th of August. And I felt like the last month, like the 2 first months, was pretty. I wouldn't say rough, but I could feel like I needed some time to get back to myself. But the last month, I actually started to feel a lot better. And then we also did the slow start where I didn't play the Cologne. So I think that helped as well.
So when you say, you started to feel yourself again, this is probably something that a lot of people at home have a hard time resonating with. But before that, the level of work that you were under for it with Astralis, and I don't mean that in terms of the work they were putting you under, but the work that you guys were choosing to do to become the best Counter-Strike team in the world.
Yeah.
Like how strenuous of a workload are we talking here, and like the focus, all that kind of stuff to get you to a point where I assume what we're talking about here is a loose term for it would be burnout, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think being the in-game leader for a lot of practice games, a lot of official matches can actually be pretty tough for a lot of people. So what we tried to do was to get Danny to be in-game leader in some of our practices, and in the end it was all of them. And then we went to go to Magisk, being the in-game leader. So yeah, we tried to do some different things because I think it was pretty tough for me to handle. I think there was too much responsibility. And I couldn't handle it in the end. So I decided that I needed to take a break to get on top again. And yeah, it worked out. And now we're doing some new things so I can fully recover.
I wouldn't mind digging a little bit into like, the time off that you had, because like I had a decent chunk of time off myself in the middle of the year where I was left completely alone in Malta, and I just started having to do all these things because I was finding the time very, very lonely. Now, I'm not sure how you spent your time, whether it was family, your significant other, friends or whatever, but
Yeah.
what like finding out about your own self did you do in that time?
So I worked with a psychologist, of course. That was the mental part. And that, of course, helped a lot to talk about the responsibility I had in the past and how to get over it, and that it would be much better when I came back because I wouldn't have the same responsibility and stuff like that. And also there was the physical part, which Astralis had been trying to implement into all of us for quite some time. And I had actually started to do it, but I didn't do it properly and I didn't do it enough. And I think it was tough for me with all the travel and all the games to do it all the time. So I started to think about more about the physical training and my diet as well, actually, and also the mental part.
Okay. Striker Prof, you got anything on gla1ve returning?
I guess we can kind of transition forward, I guess. During that time, I presume you weren't really watching CS and stuff like that, so you're just like cut off completely from that. What was the first thing when you came back? How did you actually approach that? Was it watching like demos? Did you have some like notes prepared for Zonic, like some homework to catch up on the meta? How did that part look like?
Actually, I took it really slow, I would say. I came back. I started to watch the other guys play. They played with Bubsky and EasyTag. I started to see that they were actually playing really good, which made me very happy. They also did good in Cologne. And I actually just thought I need just to take it slow and I will get back into my game. And when I'm starting to play myself, that is where I can be really effective. So I wouldn't say I did the best like as an assistant coach. I wasn't like fully focused about everything. I need to make everything work right now, right here. So I took my time, I waited a bit, and I implemented the things I would when I came to play myself.
Did you feel any sort of pressure about having to come back kind of as soon as possible, or did you really want to wait as long as possible to really get back on the horse?
I think what gave me a bit of pressure was that the major was around the corner. It was in November, right? But we had the major qualification, the RMR that we're going to play on Thursday, the DreamHack Open one. So that, of course, gave me a bit of pressure because I wanted to play the major. I wanted to play the major qualification. I would feel like I would let the team down a little bit if we were to lose that major spot in some way. So, of course, I put a bit of pressure on myself to get back a bit faster. So, yeah, but in the end, there's no major, right? So,
yeah. I mean, but from what about from the point of the view that you actually have other guys too who can potentially, take your spot on the team if it came to it. So is there any pressure that stems from that at all? Or are you feeling kind of safe in the team, I guess?
I think it would be a big lie if anybody said that when they're on the bench and they're watching other players do really good, that they are not afraid of losing their spot at some point. I think every player has that in their mind. It's something that you have to work with a 7-man roster as we have right now. So yeah, of course, it gave me a bit of pressure, and of course, I want to prove myself that I'm good enough for being in the starting lineup.
Now, I think here we could probably start moving into that conversation about the starting lineup because we did on broadcast have an interview with Danny Zonic, the coach, and we were talking about you and your integration, and we're also talking about the overlap with you and Magisk. Now, he mentioned that earlier in the year, obviously, you guys did a little bit of handoff between the two of you, kind of sharing that load. And he did it while you were taking time off. But coming back into that, was it like were you worried about stepping on toes, or is there just like a mutual respect there? Like, how's that whole situation with the two of you?
Actually, I remember I wrote Danny like after I think it was like 3 or 5 first days of practice with Magisk as the main in-game leader. And I wrote Danny, I can really feel like Magisk took the responsibility to him, and now he's a lot more vocal. So I had like a less of an impact in the beginning, but it just had to take like a couple of more days, and then it started to work out for us. And now we're back again being like the duo in-game leaders and helping each other out. And in practice game, he has like the main responsibility, which helps me a lot. And when we go into official games, I would say it's still him, but I am contributing a lot. So yeah, so I would say like we're splitting up between us right now. On some maps, he's really good as an in-game leader, I think, and on some maps, of course, he's still new and he has to learn. Especially on Nuke, he's doing a really good job on the T side. So on some maps, I let him do it, and on some maps, I come up with some more ideas for him.
Is that hard to relinquish that type of control?
Yeah, of course it is. Sometimes you just want to be the in-game leader if you know this is what we need to do from what I think that would win us the round. But sometimes if you pick an in-game leader, you have to listen to him. It doesn't even matter if he makes the wrong decision or the wrong call. I don't even care. But if he tells you to run into death, you're gonna run into death.
Okay. Okay. Well,
are there no problems in terms of authority on the team now, especially with you saying, you know, that it's somewhat map dependent and stuff like that? So are there any problems that you guys encounter, you know, since it is kind of jumping back and forth between you guys?
I wouldn't say so, to be honest. I think we have a really good understanding of how to help each other, me and Magisk. I'm really happy that he took on this role because it's not easy. And also, I think I'm really proud of how he had handled the whole situation, because going out, being a really good fragger, being top 5 I guess he was top 5 in 2019, right? On the world ranking, Magisk, and now he's maybe stepped a bit down because now he is the in-game leader and stuff like that. So I'm really proud of him.
Okay, I wouldn't mind digging in a little bit to when you returned. Part of that interview that I had with Zonic was he was saying how much the meta can shift and how quickly it can shift in Counter-Strike. What was the biggest thing you noticed from when you departed to when you came back in terms of change of like gameplay? Was there anything major?
I don't think there was any major differences as far as I know. I don't remember specifically. I would say that I wouldn't say it's in the last 3 months that it changed, but the last year maybe, in 2020, I would say people are a lot more aware of how they're using their utility now. And that means that you need to change up the pace of the game sometimes. And that is something new that we have to work on. So that's something I could see from the outside. And now with like, I feel like I have a bit of renewed energy. I see that we need to make some stuff up to actually be the number 1 team in the world consistently. And you could see it in the Na'Vi game as well. Like 2 rounds on the T side of train, you have to do something different, right?
Yeah. Well, did you have any like epiphanies in your time off either? You know, you were just sitting there. I don't know. One day maybe you were making like a clay sculpture or some shit to relax yourself, and you just had like some epiphany of like a strategy or of like an awesome CT-sided hold or something that you wanted to do. Did you have any of those moments in your time off?
Not really in my time off. It was especially when I got back, I started to get all those, when you play a lot of CS, you start to dream about CS every night. I mean, last night I dreamed about something with me and cadiaN. I think it just had something to do with the tweets and all that stuff. I was in the server and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's stupid.
Yeah, no, I when I was used to play with the boys and we would share rooms. Apparently, I used to sleep talk about Counter Strike, so I know exactly what you're talking about there with that one. Now, for you coming back into the team as well. Obviously, there was newer names in the squad, right? Like Asatag's there, Bubsky's there. You played with both of them. Now Bubsky was just that one series, and I'm sure that you practiced a bunch with him. And then the same with Asatag, you played all those series. How was it adjusting to new people and new personalities? Was there a big learning curve in terms of like the way that you have to speak to these kind of players, or how they respond to certain things?
Yeah, of course, when you have to make like new friends or you learn new personalities, there's always some time where you're just a bit more laid back and you don't say too much and you take it a bit easy. You need to learn how they're feeling, how they're talking. So of course I was a bit more quiet in the beginning because they were like a new team in some way, and I had to get back into the position for myself. So of course I was a bit laid back in the beginning, but I think now it's really good with all my teammates. And like in game wise, I would say EasyTag is. I think he is actually an amazing player. He's a really good player. He's good with utility. He has a good understanding of the game. He's a bit more defensive than Bubsky. Bubsky, he's like, I think he would be if he were playing right now. I think he would be like the most aggressive player in in Counter-Strike. He's hyper aggressive, and sometimes it could be a bit too much. And I think that is where he could maybe learn a little bit from the others. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do right now.
Is this something from an in-game leader standpoint as well, where you look at the idea of, let's say, a 6, 7, 8, whatever man roster? Let's go with the 7-man roster you have right now, and you can envision like, oh, going up against this team, Asatag will be the type of player we want, or going up against this squad, if we bring Bubsky in, that'd be fantastic. Or we know that it's going to be really mid-round heavy. Maybe bringing Xyp9x in for a couple of clutches would be good. Like, is that thoughts that you have about like the roster, or do you just kind of let Danny make those decisions and you just play?
I mean, of course, we have talks about it, but I think it's mainly up to Danny to decide who is playing and who is not. Of course, he can ask the other guys, like, what do you guys think? But mainly it's just him picking, and I think he's working with Astralis about doing it as well. I don't know, but he has the main responsibility, and it's him making the choices. I mean, yeah, that's it.
Okay.
I wanted to ask about you. Actually, I think the first game that you came in, you played with Bubsky, and that was the train game, right? One of the maps was train,
right?
Yeah.
And then you played the inner site, and Bubsky was playing his like A site, whatever Pop Dog play.
Yes.
And then after that, you made the switch to EasyTag coming in and playing the B side. So, how much of that decision to make the change was like Zonic? How much was your feedback playing like the site that you usually don't play, right? So just tell me about
that. I was so bad at the inner bomb side, and I knew that if this were going to happen again, I would lose my spot. So I said to Sonic, let's bring in EasyTag, put him inside, put me outside so I can keep my spot, right? No, that's not true. Actually, it was my first train game holding inside. We didn't even practice train, I think. And we didn't expect to play train against complexity because before that game, they had train as their permaban. So we actually prepared Inferno because that was like their weak map, but they banned Inferno against us. And then we just decided, okay, then we have to pick train. They have been banning it so many times in a row. And yeah, it did went really well. We came to overtime, but if I played a bit better inside, or if I had some more experience inside, I think we would have won that game.
Okay. Do you have anything else to strike on this before we move into more of the EPL discussion?
No, I think we can move on.
Okay. So I guess if we get into EPL, that's your first tournament back and you win it. Does it seem like it's still a bit too easy mode for Astralis right now, gla1ve? Like, what's going on there, mate?
I don't think so. Not with that final. I'm not gonna say it was easy. Not with that final. There was an intense and crazy final, and it could have gone both ways, right? I think Navi is playing really well, actually. Simple and Electronic starting to play really well again. Also, Boomich, I think he's doing a really good job as the in-game leader at the moment. He had a bit like. You saw in the beginning of the year, he was doing really well at the Blast Premier and stuff like that. Then he started to fall a bit back, fall a bit down, and now he's starting to come up again. And you can really see how it's affecting their game, especially on the T side. But I would say also on the CT side, because he's actually pretty aggressive. He makes a lot of space for the rest of the players. So I think he's doing a really good job.
But that season, do you think it was a really good kind of format for you to come back in, knowing you had round robins, best of threes, you had 7 matches guaranteed? Is that like a bit of a dream when you're coming back into competition?
That was perfect for me. I mean, I couldn't have asked for something more. That was just really just perfect for me because I needed a lot of games to implement some of the things I wanted to in our game. Some of the things I needed that we like from official games. That's where you learn the most. Something funny is like vertigo. When you practice that, every team just go A 15 rounds in a row. So when you're holding the B side as CT on vertigo, you never see anyone. Then when you play official games, suddenly we are playing against Heroic and they're going B side every round and we never practiced against it. So it's just like, what is going on? And this happened to us in the past as well with Liquid and stuff like that. So official games is definitely where you can learn the most and where you change the most afterwards.
Okay. So the format was good. The tournament was pretty good considering the fact you won it and you had that lower bracket run. Now, for those people who didn't catch that, you had Spirit. You lost to Heroic, then you played Spirit. Then let's see how good my memory is. Then you played Complexity. Then you played Mouse. Then you played Heroic. You got your revenge there, and then you played gla1ve. So you actually had like I was kind of trying to frame it that you had different steps on this ladder, right? Spirit, yeah, they're on the cusp. You know, they're a threatening team, but they're not a tier 1 squad. Yeah, Complexity, they're a great team, but they had to deal with the standing issue. Mouse Sports, honeymoon period, fantastic players. Then you get your revenge against Heroic, who were at the time the world #1, and then you go into the final against Simple, you know, potentially the best player to ever do it. Did it kind of feel like that in the journey? It was getting like incrementally harder.
Yeah, I think so actually, because I think that we played pretty good, but the games were really close either way. So I think all the teams, like the 3 last teams we played, Heroic, Mouse Sports, Navi, they all were playing really well Counter-Strike. So I was surprised that we won, and I think we had some luck with us as well to win that tournament. So yeah, in the end, we are really happy with that win.
And what happens after that type of a win for the team? Like now with the 7-man roster, do you all sit around and you're like, okay, well these were like good performances, but we might, because you guys have announced you're going to use Xyp9x when Blast comes around, right? Like
Yeah,
is the post game debrief different after the tournament now with 7 men is what you'd normally have? Is there different discussions being had? Is practice looking different? Like how does all that kind of stuff work out?
You know, when we win the tournament, we doesn't have to do a debrief, and that's the good thing about it.
Okay.
So, no, of course,
But
everybody
not a
is
lot of
included.
them back in 2018, right?
Yeah, that was perfect in 2018. You can just go to the hotel and relax. Now, of course, every man is included in both the preparation for the games and in the practice games and the debrief after the games and stuff like that. Every player that wants to be there can be there, and if they have something else to do, it could be some media things or stuff like that. Of course, they cannot go.
Okay. I wanted to kind of open the floor up to you a bit here, Striker and Prof, asking about anything to do with the extended 7-man roster that we currently see, because we're dipping our toes in that part right now. You got anything on this?
I actually want to ask about the cadiaN situation.
Oh, sure.
cadiaN
Yeah.
situation. Okay. I have a simple question.
Okay,
You
make
can
it
answer
simple,
it
please.
however you want. Was there, like, when you initially made the tweet before the rematch, was there any thinking, I want to kind of fuck with these guys, put this out in the public, like just to mess with their heads a bit, see how they'll react in the rematch later?
I would say if there were, it would be in the back of our mind because that was not actually my intention with the tweet. But I can see from the outside perspective that it was and actually a pretty awful timing for that tweet because we were maybe going to meet them 2 games after. So I see where you come from, but no, it wasn't intentional to do something with
To
them.
be honest, like MSL is notorious for making these tweets at the worst time. He would probably do it like straight after losing to Heroic.
Yeah,
That
that's
was
true.
when he would tweet it. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like straight there. But when I saw it, I'm like, yeah, this. I kind of agree with the tweet. I said that on the show before, but at the same time, like this could actually help them as well. So
No,
nice.
like my thought was just that if your coach go out and say that the players knew nothing about it, if the organization goes out and say the players knew nothing about it, why isn't the player saying anything about it? Why aren't they going out and saying the same? It's just I think it's weird, but Let's not go into that because yeah, it's late news, right?
We discussed it a bit on last week's show, right? It's a can of worms, and I think that if you know social media becomes a tool where unhinging your opponent in that fashion before like is an intentional thing, like we know the fighters and stuff do that in UFC, right? They're talking shit the whole time. Look, I think that is probably a viable thing to do in the future. It really just depends on where it comes from. Now, I'm not saying that you did that. I'm just saying that's something that I'm surprised hasn't been a tactic players have used more. I guess the community has a fantastic job of making everybody just play the good guy. But you've done actually a good job in the past, gla1ve, of being the heel. I love that interview that you did. What was it? It was like this time last year. It was when you guys won the major in Berlin, and you were fucking so pumped up. Like you could see your blood vessels and shit as you. I love that. That's such a great interview. But I'm derailing the topic here. So, we'll go into the extended roster some more. Now, with this, right? I'm not going to lie to you, mate. I still call a little bit of bullshit with the 7-man roster because, like, I get the 6-man. Like, I get 6. 6, sure, you have a guy, he's serviceable, you swap it in and out, someone's getting a bit tired, you're motivating a player who, maybe isn't putting in all the hours you need. But 7, we're starting to get into the realms here where it's like, how does this 6 for me is still really difficult to wrap my head around, just being from a Counter-Strike purist standpoint. But 7 is like, how are you even sharing this? Because so far Xyp9x is back, but he hasn't played a game. He's not going to play a game for another at least couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, he can't.
Yeah, so he can't play on your roster for the DreamHack Open stuff.
Yes.
And then bubzkey's sitting there waiting as well. Obviously, they're just grinding and practicing. Do you worry that, like, if you leave those players out there for too long, that they're not going to be match ready and things like that?
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely a thing, and you have to think about how you're going to deal with that. If it comes that we're going to change up our lineup, we have to think about how we're going to deal with that. Like people not being too nervous because now they have to really be there and play their heart out to get a spot on the roster and stuff like that. We have to think about those things for sure.
Is there a part of this here so that you guys don't end up like NIP of old or MIBR or Virtus Pro, where eventually, they don't make roster changes and they don't invest in future talent, and then they end up fucked and they end up actually fucking the rest of their scene as well? Like, is part of this bring in some newer faces, some younger names, a way that if the transition has to happen, it's not going to be like a shock to the system?
I wouldn't say in the beginning when we started to get EasyTag and bubzkey. I wouldn't say in the beginning that was our plan, but I see that it's actually really effective to maybe get some fresh blood, get some new motivation, get some new ideas on the table. Both bubzkey and EasyTag has a lot of new ideas from their previous rosters. So I see that it's actually maybe could work with that. And of course, we don't want to end like Virtus Pro that is now not together anymore and stuff like that. So I think actually it is pretty good to do things like that.
And when we go for it, Striker.
So how do you even deal with this specifically, like in terms of practice, especially just because obviously, especially when there was that time where bubzkey played the first match of Pro League, but then S-Attack stepped in. So how the hell did you even practice before this event, not knowing which one of them would really play at which match?
Yeah, it was pretty tough for our opponent because we played 6 versus 5, so they had a tough time.
No, but from you, who plays in practice essentially? How do you decide who plays?
The guy that will play the next game plays in practice.
Okay.
That's it. The other guy is sitting outside and watching the team play, and he's helping with if he has some ideas or if he sees something, he's helping out.
Okay.
So can you just for an example sort of work for example's sake, can you talk me through how it worked when like that switch came in after the first match? Did it just like after the first match, did you just decide, okay, well, this attack has to step in, so now he has to practice? Is that how it went?
Yeah, so we decided to play with Danny decided to play with bubzkey in the first game. And I think bubzkey was, like I said earlier, he was a bit too aggressive, and that was not really what we needed. We needed someone more in control, didn't take too many chances, because I like to take chances Dupree likes to take chances. We didn't need one more player that likes to do that as well. So I think that EasyTech, we realized that EasyTech was maybe a better fit for us. So that is why we decided to change.
Okay, so that's interesting.
I mean,
yeah,
I think most people would agree with that like assessment overall, like that EasyTech makes more sense as a Xyp9x replacement.
Yes.
Just naturally fits in. At the same time, it's just a rough time for Boobski now on the team, considering if you or Dupree don't step down, it doesn't really feel like he has a place on the roster, right? He isn't as versatile, not an opper, not an in-game leader. Like his place is just like that. So from that perspective, when can he actually step in? Like I don't know. That's a hypothetical question.
I see where you come from. I think maybe Boobski would be best to replace with either me or Dupree, I think, because we are a bit more aggressive and like to take some chances sometimes and stuff like that. So I think that's where his place would be the best fit. But I don't know, actually, because I'm not the one who is deciding. It's actually Danny. So he has the last say, right?
I guess we need to wait and see if you or Dupree drop off in form a little bit, which doesn't seem to be the case at the moment. Dupree had a bit of a banger going on in recent times. But one of the sentiments we got from Device when he was on the show, now correct me if I'm wrong, Striker and Prof, but this is the sentiment I got from Device, was his thoughts on this, because we were talking to him in the very beginning of all of this happening, was that the championship roster, obviously the five of you who've just won the last bunch of majors together, should be able to defend your title like as the best team in the world. Like that was kind of his sentiment when the event rolls around, the major, whenever it's coming, that you guys should be able to defend your title. Do you kind of find yourself in that same boat?
Yeah, for sure. I think that would be really great for the team to let us finish what we have started. So I mean, if we were to go back to playing with Xyp9x and with me again, and the main core, the 5 players that we had before, and we started to drop off in level, I would understand that we needed to do a change, but before that, I would say it would be tough for us to make a change for a major.
Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah,
just to clarify, then does Xyp9x, do we just see the original 5 playing at the next tournament?
Not at DreamHack Open, but
no, I mean
after
that. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, Xyp9x will return for Blast, but if he will be playing, that is up for Danny to decide. So yeah, hopefully he'll have some games.
So Blast have different roster rules, right? There's one you can change players around.
I think so too, yeah.
So he's this is the thing, like, so I don't know if you saw, but Prof and I have a bet of €100 that Xyp9x maybe doesn't play an official game before the end of the year. Now,
who said what?
I said that Xyp9x wouldn't. Now I just took a stab in the dark because of how well EsserTag was playing. I thought
you want to bet with me as well?
No, that is a loaded bet right there. So okay. I can't go on that. But with what you're saying here, it sounds like there's a high probability that he does, right? But if it is the roster rules for Blast are a little bit more frequent, do you think you guys, even if you were winning, would want to play around with rosters more? Like, do you feel that you want? Well, I guess this is a Danny question, not a you question, but I could ask your opinion on it.
Yes, of course.
Do you think it would be something just in a tournament that to try a whole bunch of different mixes with these 7 players to see how it all feels?
You mean if Blast is a tournament for us where we try it out?
Well, maybe not Blast specifically, but like Blast is an example of a tournament where you could, or maybe one in the future.
Like they cut all of the prize money, so maybe it would be a good idea. I mean,
just to note, by the way, Blast is the tournament that had, at least for the previous tournaments, they had the rule where you could switch like between maps in the best of 3. So that's an additional reason why they could pull in someone and push them out.
I think it would be really fun if that were to happen, because how would you be able to anti-strat a team that is changing players mid-game, right? So for that, I would think that would be pretty funny. If it's going to happen, I have no idea, to be honest. But I think it could be pretty funny, and if it would be able to work out, I think we need more time, to be honest.
Sure.
I'm not sure, but I think we need more time to be able to play with a real, like you said, 6-man roster. For us, it's 7-man roster. I think it takes some time for us to implement it for real.
Okay. I think on that as well. So there's obviously other teams, Vitality. There's news from them soon as well. Apparently, it's reported. Is it Nivera is meant to be joining as their 6th player? We had Henry from Cloud9 saying they were going to get a 6th. Ents pretended they were having a 6-man roster for a moment there. There's obviously other names who are flirting with the idea as well, or have 6-man rosters at this point. What do you think of the other teams giving it a crack? Do you think that they're just following the Astralis, trying to keep up, or do you think that they have like actual merit in other teams trying this?
I'm a bit confused if we are seeing people having a 6th man as an emergency if something happens with another player, or if another player is having like symptoms of burnout as I had, or if we're actually going to see a rotating 6-man lineup where you will see a new player play in almost every game, right? And I think both is good, and I think it's necessary for the future, especially the emergency one. If you can't do the rotating one, I think that's gonna be. I think it will take time for the teams to do, and for us as well.
Okay.
Well, here's a question: do you think you can make that viable?
That's really tough to say. I mean,
with time, of course.
I'm not gonna bet with you. That's for sure. I mean, time will tell, because I actually have no idea. If we were thinking this is absolutely impossible, of course we would never have done it. But we actually think it's possible. But are we going to be as good as we were in 2018, late 2019? I have no idea, and that is where we need time to tell, right?
Do you think that some of this is due to the COVID situation as well? Obviously, we have all these online tournaments backed into one another, and a lot of players talking about the burnout from going in one to the next. Do you think some of these teams are just bringing in a 6-man now to take and alleviate some pressure from the core, allow them to have a couple of tournaments off or games off so they can be a little bit fresher? Or that for me is what it looks like for some of these names.
Yeah, I mean, both to take some pressure off with having some more off days as a player, having a few less games where you can actually just relax, so you can help the team in some other ways that won't make you have the same responsibility. I think that is a possibility. Yeah, I had something more. I don't remember. Yeah.
Oh, good. All right. So unless we got anything else for gla1ve on the hot seat here, boys, what we might do is we might jump into the recent news, smash through. Yeah.
I can ask maybe one question. I think it's just because it's topical. There are actually 2 questions and they complement each other perfectly, because one guy, it's one of the viewer questions. Philip asks, does it affect you as a player when Astralis as the org is criticized? Example, Blastralis. And the other question is from Emo. This is the question. We don't care about puppets from organizations about you being on the show. Ask him, why did he call Hulk Heroica team of cheaters when he is denying the smoke abuse, blah blah.
Jesus Christ!
Oh wait, it's because his org has to type out his tweet. So that's that classic like criticism that comes your way, and the other guy is asking like, how does that actually make you feel?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's pretty funny, right? Like the smoke accusations back then was pretty funny. I was denying it like instantly, and I even denied it for my teammates as well, because I knew that nobody would cheat on our team. I know my teammates too well. And with the criticism of Blastralis and stuff like that, I think it's pretty funny, and I think you can like make some memes yourself about it. I know for myself what is right and what is wrong, and my teammates knows as well, and that is all that matters for us. What people think, there will always be some that doesn't believe what you're saying, that is believing that you're the worst guy ever and stuff like that, and you have to just move on from that and don't think too much about it.
You obviously have like a very large social media following, right? Like, do you find yourself reading just all the negative comments and being able to move on from it, or do you find like eventually, like if you're having a shit day, like it'll affect you?
Actually, I think I don't get too much negative comments, not on my profile. Maybe I read most on my profile, I think, when people are writing to my tweets or to me on Instagram personally. And I don't think I get a lot of hate, to be honest. But of course, on HLTV, all the topics. If you're having a really bad day and people are just like really harassing you in some way, of course it will affect you a little bit, but you have to just move on from that and just like you can think, of course they can be like that because you're a public figure and stuff like that. So I'm not taking it too serious, to be honest.
Okay, I'll have to take a page out of your book, I think. All right, let's move on to the recent news. Lucas, play the bumper. All right, we're back and we're going to get into some recent news. When we roll through a lot of this, guys, it's probably going to be pretty quick. We've touched on some of this stuff before. Now, Striker, you had something you wanted Lucas to bring up for us. Lucas, can you pull up the image? Tell us when it's up. I can't see the preview. When it's up, we can talk through this one. This was some news just before the show went live for the couple hours. It's up. All right, Striker, take the floor, my friend.
Okay, I mean, what I wanted to, I guess, discuss or at least touch on was why are Dignitas bringing in a guy who was literally plus Hari, minus Hari like 5 times in North event?
So you're saying that he wasn't consistent on that roster, so why is he going to Dignitas?
Well, he literally, like I said, he literally left and joined on a standard basis or a permanent basis like 5 times over the last 2 years. So I'm just like I have to be honest. I don't really know the guy too much because he hasn't really been at like a relevant level, for a very long time. So it's just difficult for me to gauge what they see in him, especially based on a team from his own country, not really believing whether he is the right fit or isn't the right fit based on how often they're bringing him back and forth.
I'd say the emergency button's probably getting hit with a lot of these Flashpoint teams. If I'm going to be completely real with everybody out there, most of them don't have rosters that are complete at the moment, right? So some of these names and knowing how absolutely premium some of the buyouts for players are right now, I'd say, probably just a bit of the emergency button being hit. Or maybe we'll frame it the other way. Now that he knows he's going to get a bigger paycheck, he's going to actually, saddle on up and be the consistent force they need. But I'm just looking at their most recent matches. It doesn't look great. Doesn't look good. Doesn't look fantastic for his rating. So that'll be an interesting one.
I have two
comments
on this.
Yeah.
First comment, one guy from chat, I missed his name now, just said they kicked Get Right for this. So that's
a good point.
Just a thing to note. Like, you literally kicked a legend for a guy that doesn't seem very promising. He seems like an okay player. So that's interesting. And the other thing is there was a report of the other player that they were going to sign, and I've literally never heard of the guy. So that's like, is Dignitas really at that point right now?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I think if you wanted to buy some of the other names that are out there, established names, you're going to have to be dropping a pretty penny. And maybe Dignitas don't want to part ways with the same money that reportedly Jason Lake wants to part money with, right? So that means we can probably just segue away from Dignitas because until they have 5.
I have a point as well. I think what you saw with NIP is what they did. They brought in a lot of talents back then, and they like kicked all of the old guys. And I would say that if you look at how like the old players are doing, I would say that it's the right thing to do to bring in fresh talent when the older guys start to fall a bit out and not perform. And I think you have to do it. Don't wait like 1 year, 1.5 years, give them so much time. If they don't perform for some time, I think you should change, because that's how you're going to stay relevant, and that's how you're going to stay on top as an organization.
What we were saying from the get-go, and like it sounds horrible, but that entire project coming together looked like a retirement home to me, right? Like
it was pretty weird, but
it's like, okay, so you guys, sure, you got fucked around, you didn't earn all the money because you were there, you kind of were there just before the money like hit the peak, and you guys apparently reportedly, I don't know, I'm not going to put my fucking like down on this, but were fucked around one way or another. There's an alarm going on. Hold up, I'm going to turn this alarm off. 1 second. 1 moment.
Yeah.
That's his sleep, like timer to go to sleep, I think, these days.
That's early.
He's a boomer, man. You'll see when you reach like 30, 31. It's like 10 p.m. latest.
I fixed
you need
it.
to be in the bed.
I go to bed real early. I'm an old man, right? So the alarm's off now. Sorry, everybody. That doesn't normally happen. I'm gonna have to get rid of this. Where were we? Retirement home. Yep, I'm back in the room. Okay. Anyway, Dignitas. We're not talking about them. We're moving on. We're going to talk about complexity. We're going to talk about apparently they're signing JKS now. Last week on the show, we were mentioning some names. Like, actually, I don't know if I was doing this on broadcast or if we were doing this on the show. Did Carrigan mention something about ROPS? Do I remember that?
No, well, yes.
Someone mentioned something about ROPS to complexity as an idea. Someone said that on the show, yes.
Okay, I'm sure we said
what?
Yeah.
Just like theoretically, that would be a great signing. Not not a report. We didn't report it.
I think we were talking about Cloud9, but to be honest, complexity fits just as well. So I think it's just I get the confusion.
I think we delved into a little bit between both, but regardless of that, so with JKS apparently joining the team, taking the spot of Obo, gla1ve, let's start with you. Do you think that's a good fit?
Yeah, I think so, for sure. I think JKS is a really good player, and he has been proving that for several years now. And I think actually he will fit really good into the system of Blame, which also is looking like a really good in-game leader for me. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see. Actually, Obo was actually a huge part of their success. I know that they had a bit of trouble in the beginning with him, that he didn't have too much experience, but in the end he actually had so many great rounds. I watch a lot of complexity games just because that's Blame is stealing a lot of my stuff, so I need to steal a lot of his as well. So I think Obo was really great, and I think JKS can actually manage to be able to fit into that team.
Do you think that JKS is an upgrade from Obo overall?
Oh, that's so tough to say. I would say on the paper, he is for sure. But in-game wise, it has to be on how he's performing right now. So I'm not too sure about that. But I think on paper, you have to agree that JKS is a better player than Obo. But I actually think that Obo did a really good job.
Yeah. Prof, if we're looking at what this kind of means for JKS, if he's making this move, he's now going away from Azure after what, like 6 years. Do you think this is going to be a smooth transition for the kid, or he's going to have some speed bumps?
I think from one perspective, it's going to be weird just moving to a new team, especially a team of players that you don't know that well and that has their kind of hierarchy of who's the main man. Because in Renegades, even though he's not like a massive outgoing guy, definitely not JKS, but everyone in the team knows he's the guy to set up. He's just getting everything that he needs without even having to request it, right? But I think in complexity, he's going to probably have to, inside of the team, as gla1ve said, he needs to go and get what he needs, right? To be set up for the same success he had in Renegades 100 Thieves.
So yeah, go for it.
Yeah, Chad, you were saying that the roles just fit quite well, at least
on the CT
on a lot of the
side,
maps.
for sure.
So,
yeah.
I think I just think that it is a good fit. So
what about on the T side? Do you think there will be a role clash between Blame and JKS, or what do you think?
I do. I think that, and if I'm Blame, I'm not giving JKS the roles. I would just keep them. But also, at second thought on that, and I don't know what because you said you've been watching a lot of them, right, gla1ve?
Yeah.
I think even though Blame in interviews has said they try in every single game that they play to not run the same strategies, they definitely run some of the same strategies.
Of course.
You have to.
Of course. I've
watched a lot of Complexity Counter-Strike in the last 2 months that it is now, and it feels to me like a lot of their stuff, especially on Duke, for example, a map that they play a lot, is starting to become easier to read. What kind of lurks they're going to go for in the yard position when they get the certain control, right? And teams are working that out too, because I'm watching teams like Hard Counter, Blames ladder lurk and shit. They're all hyper aware of where he's going to be and the timings and all that kind of stuff. So potentially, what I could see as a positive, if I'm thinking about JKS coming in, is if they wanted to make it so it was now a little bit more unpredictable, is not to change everything just for JKS, but to be a little bit more flexible. It's okay, we're going to throw these yard smokes, but Justin, you're the one who's going to actually go for the lurk. He's going to have a different flight path. He's going to have a different way that he goes about it, probably different timings. That's one way to kind of keep their T-sides a little bit fresher. The T-sides is the worry, right? I don't know if JKS can go into something that's going to be I don't want to say a hard entry role, because Rush is always going to go in first and give up his life for everybody else. Like that's going to happen in most occasions, but it's going to be difficult because even this is for me a long time ago. Getting JKS to go in first, when he would piss me off in game, and it only happened a couple times, and he told this story on the show, I would just make him in the next round. This is in practice scrims. Just go rush somewhere and die first, so I don't have to fucking watch him last alive, right? Like that's how it was like back then. JKS has obviously evolved a lot as a player. Do you think there's going to be much overlap?
I'm not sure actually. I think that, like you said, Blame should not give up his roles because he's putting on really good numbers, and I think that's really well for an in-game leader to do. So I think what they are doing is working, even though people are saying that he's maybe baiting sometimes, and I see where they come from. But still, if they're winning, he's putting up good numbers. The team is okay with it, and he is not doing it every round. I think it's fine. So I think that they should implement JKS into the team that or the roles that Obo had.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think here, if we look at this roster, Striker, we can now talk about our little bet that we have going on. I think that I may have fucked myself.
You might have.
I may have, like, I didn't do anything to make this happen, but I'm definitely a massive supporter of this move, and I think like this team now with JKS as an upgrade on Obo might fuck me over. What do you think?
I definitely agree. I definitely like JKS too for my chances.
How good do you reckon they can be though?
Look, I mean, what is their peak at this point? They were fifth.
Yeah.
For a bit. Obviously, they didn't stay there for very long. They are still a little bit inconsistent, but I do feel like, well, I guess you were right, gla1ve, in saying that Obo was a big part of their success. So I'm not entirely sure how massive of an upgrade it is, but it has to be to some degree, just because of the level of experience that JKS has from the last 6 years or whatever it is that he's been playing, right? So it has to be an upgrade, and he's obviously putting up great numbers for a very long time. But I'm just not entirely sure with some of these role clashes that you were talking about that it's going to be like such a smooth sailing as I'm hoping for. But I think in the long term, it's just going to be a really good team.
I think that even if they get to the same level as they had with Obo, and it isn't like an upgrade, but it's just the same, I think that they will go higher than 5th in the HLTV world ranking.
Yeah, if we look at it right now, you guys have gotten back first position. So just for those audio listeners, Astralis number 1, Heroic number 2, Na'Vi number 3, Vitality 4, EG, Big, Furia, OG, FaZe, Liquid. That's the top 10. Complexity at 12th. Now, I'm going to say half of the names that I just listed in that top 10, in my opinion, don't play consistent Counter-Strike by any means. They are getting through in a lot of these matches by the fucking seat of their pants. Like, FaZe just jumped 8 ranks, right? And it's highly likely Nico's going to G2, thanks to coldzera's mum. We have a little bit more to believe in that stock right there. No, like, seriously, let's be honest. Like, that
who knows if coldzera's mom knows anything more than like the pleb on in the HLTV forums? Like, she could literally be going off the report from like 10 days ago.
I don't know how many people there are out there who are like me, but I consider myself to be a horrible kid, and I still tell my mum the majority of shit that's going on in my life. So I'm going to assume that there's probably a little bit of conversation going on with her and her son who's living on the other side of the world, right? There must be, especially if she's keeping up to date with the recent results and stuff. And if there was any thought that Cold might be going back to Brazil or might be going back to that side of the world if FaZe falls apart, there must have been conversations, right? So obviously,
she's literally about this. She's literally tweeting at a player, so clearly she's following the stuff. So.
We are analyzing coldzera's mom on the podcast. Please,
we have to.
We've turned into Ryan.
This isn't TMZ level bullshit, right? Like, we're not operating right now. Like, this is something that you could probably sink your teeth into and make a legitimate, and it probably will turn out to be the case, right? Like, who knows? FaZe might not want to sell him. Ocelot might not have enough money. I'm sure by me saying that, he's just going to up it and just pay whatever the fuck FaZe want now. But the point here is, like, that tweet is pretty damning with all things considered. I think I've gotten off topic anyway. Hold up.
We're going to get to FaZe later, aren't we?
Sure, we will. So we'll save that. Let's get into this next one. We'll move away from JKS and the complexity stuff. Let's move into this next one. So this is SKADE being disqualified from the Mountain Dew League for the coach bug.
Let's do a quick one. I think I can take this.
Summarize it for us.
The shortest version is their coach, like a lot of coaches got banned for like 1 round or something like that, or a few rounds, like less than 6 months bans. And their coach was one of those guys. But the thing is, their match happened in MDL season 34, is it, or 35? The last season, let's just say
34.
And they finished like 12th, so they just stayed in the league for the current season. And the match that they used it in was an overtime game against Movistar Riders that they actually lost. But because they used the coaching bug in any game, they got disqualified from that. Like post-event disqualified, so they lost their place in the current season. So TLDR cheated in last season, didn't win the game, still got disqualified from the current season that is like halfway through right now. So that is kind of a weird situation, but at the same time, it's the same logic that was used for the RMR events, for MIBR, Hard Legion.
Had their points reset, right?
They got their points reset and they didn't get invited to the next event, right? So that is the logic, but it's kind of weird because we're in CSGO where all of these events are kind of connected, even if they're not connected.
Yeah.
Just through the invites, through the ranking points, through everything else. And we had teams that cheated in like, we have Pita, we have Raga from like Pro League Season 8 or whatever.
Yeah.
And just because those teams changed like 3 players or whatever, or 2 years passed, it feels weird that these guys got disqualified and other teams didn't get disqualified. And just because it's not a closed circuit, it's an open circuit. So everything is kind of connected and all of these results matter. It's like, who says that like Heroics win in like the home cup 5 doesn't matter more than this match? I mean, this match, they didn't even win this match, so it doesn't matter, but it's just a weird situation.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying here on this one.
My thinking is that essentially at the time was that considering it is a league and some teams just drop out and there's what is it called?
Continuation?
I guess continuation is the best word. There's a different word that I just can't remember right now. But you know what I mean, since it just rolls forward and the same teams play in the next season, with some changes at the bottom considering how the relegation went.
Yeah.
That makes a difference, right? Because it is because if you get disqualified in a season, that means you just get dropped to the bottom, which means you become the team who gets relegated to advanced or whatever. So it kind of makes sense for me for them to be disqualified. But at the same time, as Prof said, there are teams who cheated in Pro League and are still in the league. So there's definitely not a difference there in principle.
I think the weird thing here is the fact that a lot of these other cases, or all of these other cases other than the RMR ones you cited, was the fact that the coach is the one who's punished, not the team. So it seems a little bit odd here that the coach and the team are punished in this situation when that hasn't been the case across the board.
Well, I mean, I guess to a degree, a team always got punished to a certain level just because they had to return prize money and stuff like that. But obviously not in terms of future events as it was in this case.
I'm not even sure about the prize money thing because no one said that specifically.
I don't know
publicly.
about specific events, but some of them it was the case. I can't remember which one it was at this point, but I know that some teams, like MIBR from the RMR event, I think they had to return prize money, and then somebody else, I just don't remember which teams it was.
Probably Hard Legion, right? With it.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on from this one. This coaching can of worms is a weird one. So unless anyone has anything they really want to say about this, I'm happy to keep it moving.
Okay, let's go.
Go ahead.
Silence is good. All right, I like that. All right, let's talk about Flashpoint Season 2. Now, I didn't catch this. I haven't been keeping up as much as I would like to at the moment. So, Striker, what's the go with this situation? 3 top 20 teams are invited to their league.
Prof, is that something they said on stream or something?
That was actually from the article.
Okay.
I actually just caught it recently when I was going through the news. It was just one of these like sub informations that they put out, is that allegedly 3 top 20 teams are going to be invited to the season, like directly.
Okay.
And also just looking at the teams that had to go, like Virtus Pro played the open qualifier, Godsend and North were playing the closed qualifier.
Yeah.
That kind of shows which teams are going to get invited directly to the league. Like if Godsend is playing the closed qualifier, then the teams that are invited are obviously better than that. So I think that's kind of cool for them. It could be a couple of pretty decent teams in the mix then. You have to look at the top 20 at the moment. It could be even something like Furia maybe if they aren't going to Europe to play something at the same time. Not sure about the 100 Thieves, probably not on the list considering what's going on there, but a couple of these like pretty good teams could be in the mix.
Well, we have to think that it's going to be non-louver teams essentially that are in the top 20. I can't looking at it now. I guess who's not a louver team? Heroic
Big isn't a louver team, I think.
Heroic aren't either. Big aren't. Furia aren't. Furia? Or they're not, right?
No, they're not.
OG aren't.
They're in Blast, but I'm not sure about the
OG aren't the partner teams. Where's this from? I just brought this up.
I just thought I would have to look
so this is from the 18th of Feb. Astralis, Complexity, ENT, EG, FaZe, Fnatic, G2, Mouse, Na'Vi, NIP, Liquid, Vitality, 100 Thieves.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the teams that we threw out now.
VP would be a good one to be in the mix there. There's some good names there. Virtus Pro.
They're playing the close qualifier.
Okay.
But they're not getting invited for sure. They just have to make it. But it's like one of those teams, or three of those teams we were talking about: Heroic, Big, Furia, OG, Mouse Sports are louver team.
Yeah, they are.
They are, okay. And then Spirit, Sprout, Chaos. Chaos probably not. Ents.
So I guess what we can do is just quickly wrap up the stuff with Flashpoint. So obviously a lot of their orgs who are involved in Flashpoint, Genji, Cloud9, who else we got in there making Dignitas, those kind of names, they're making changes at the moment more aggressively because of that fine that they had in there if you went in the top 20, right? And then if you're having more of these bigger names in the event, it's obviously going to get more eyeballs on the event. So it's good stuff that they're going to
You know what's super funny?
Yeah?
Cillian is still technically on the Mad Lions roster. And we literally know for a month and a half probably now that he was going to get cut. And they are getting 2 new players because all of the other Danish teams
tweet about it?
Already made the changes and announced them, which is Copenhagen Flames and Existence. They made the changes. And we literally 2 players are just waiting, just
to be announced. Yeah. Okay.
Please just announce what is going on here.
Yeah, they're in limbo, waiting for what's going to happen.
I don't know. gla1ve, did you have anything at the start? Now we're going back a little bit, but we may as well with the Flashpoint discussion. Did you guys have any say in which events you got to play with the Astralis choosing ESL and that kind of stuff?
We actually have a lot to say about what events we're going to play at. So yeah, for sure, we were in talks with both Flashpoint and ESL, and I think what made the biggest deal for us was all the teams that wanted to play ESL. There wasn't just not enough of good teams playing Flashpoint for us to be in that league. So you could maybe do something where you had wrote to some of the other teams and told them, let's do it together, move to Flashpoint, and we would get some top 10 teams, top 5 teams maybe. But in the end, it just seemed like everybody wanted to play ESL Pro League, so that's where we decided to go as well.
So was there a chance to have a discussion again about that for this season, or was that just locked in for the whole year?
I'm not too sure, but I think that it's locked in. I think that you sign some kind of contract, but I'm not 100% sure because
it's 2 or 3 years that they sign.
Yeah,
maybe
with
ESL, I think.
Nobody ever said how long it is.
I have no idea how long it is, but I think you sign some contract that if it's only for 1 season, I don't know, but I guess it's for more.
Okay. All right. Well, Flashpoint with some bigger names coming into the second season. Just for those people interested, it's going to be running from the 9th of November to the 6th of December. I was just taking a look. There's going to be a bit of clash with events around that time because obviously IEM Beijing looks like that's kicking off on November the 6th.
That's the main thing that it's going to clash with.
And a little bit with the Blast Premier Falls stuff, which kicks off on November the 23rd. So a little bit of late overlap with that right there. But it looks like we're spicing up towards the end of the year. We're getting a couple of, we already have the back.
I guess that removes OG as well in terms of the partner teams, who's probably not going to be there just because OG are one of the partner teams in Blast are going to have to play. Well, I guess it's not them.
I mean, if it is a minimal overlap, maybe they can just schedule around and push the teams into the second group or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, perhaps.
Okay, so let's keep it moving. Let's keep it chugging along. And we were just talking about OG. Well, we'll talk about the IEM New York event that we just had going down. No longer ESL 1 New York, IEM New York for this year. And it was FaZe versus OG in the final. Now, I'm not going to beat around the bush here. I'm going to be completely honest with you. This event wasn't stacked. It was a middle of the pack type event with the best teams in it. I think we would all probably agree here that the best two teams in that event were Vitality and Heroic. And Vitality, they got knocked out in third, fourth, and Heroic came last. So with this tournament right here, I don't think anybody would have been expecting FaZe versus OG as the final. But gla1ve, did you watch the final?
Actually, I didn't get to watch the final because we had practice, so I couldn't.
That's all right. You didn't miss anything crazy. There was no insane development of the meta.
I saw the Twitter drama. That was pretty good. That was enough for me.
That was the best. That was probably, well, one of the most entertaining things about it, right? Like, is coming into that, they gave us something extra to get excited about, because the storylines on broadcast that we're running with was OG, a team who had been together now for it's like 313 or 14 days or some bullshit. I worked it out the other day. That was their first grand final. That was the first time they've ever made a grand final. Inexperienced team, but experienced players. That was that direction, going up against FaZe, who with Kirby, they put him in certain roles. He wasn't fitting into those roles. They changed the roles. Things look better. FaZe, they're winning some matches, right? That was the final. That was the storyline of the final right there. And FaZe managed to sweep it in 3-0 fashion. In terms of the Counter-Strike, Prof, what did you make of it overall?
I loved the Mirage game and how awful FaZe's B site looked. It was just amazing to watch. Like, I was shocked at how bad they were at holding the B site of Mirage. It was just like every round you think like, okay, they're going to figure it out. They're going to do something. Like, the chemistry between the players was like minus 50, literally. Like,
who was holding it?
It was like Kirby, coldzera, and then Brokey on the rotates. They literally had like 3 guys coming in at some times. Literally nothing they did worked. And I actually don't blame Kirby. I think Kirby played the best out of the 3. Like, he was the anchor, and he was doing the stuff that you should do, like throw the smoke, stay alive for a bit, maybe take down one guy, like delay. And then when you have 3 guys at the site, like, these other 2 guys need to like combine somehow to lock some part of the B side down. It just didn't happen until Kirby literally played solo on short and killed 4 guys and won the game. GG was.
That's literally how the game was won. So in double overtime, Kirby from short gets a nade kill and 2 org kills, and then finishes off the last guy coming like through cat. And Kirby was the best, or had the most frags for his team in that map there. And that was when we spoke to Alexi B in the post-game interview. He said that was a big mental point for his team, right? Losing that map in that fashion. You could see how that spiraled forward. They went on to Inferno, they got blown out 16-5, and then Dust 2, it was 16-11. But a lot of the stuff there, like, we got coldzera coming back in form, Striker, on Inferno. That was something good to see, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm still kind of baffled by FaZe's form at this tournament in general, just because sure, they swapped out a couple of things, but in general the approach wasn't that different. Like, they didn't have anything mind-blowing new to come into this tournament. So it's just, I don't know what happened. I called it the fuck it phenomenon, where the team is dead. Where the team is dead, nobody really gives a shit anymore, so might as well just go out with a bang, right? No pressure, that type of a deal. So I feel like that's just one of those things that happen. Kirby probably doesn't feel as pressured to perform anymore in a role where he doesn't really feel that comfortable. The other players are probably also like kind of chill about the team breaking up in some sort of way. So that's probably how it manifested, and I don't think this is the phase that we're going to see in the future. So,
but do you think FaZe played really well, or do you think that the other teams were just weak?
But the thing is, OG have always been kind of inconsistent, so I don't think it's massively telling. The other teams are the ones that I was a little bit more surprised about, which was Vitality for sure. That I didn't expect. I didn't expect FaZe to beat them even after seeing the groups and after seeing FaZe being in a better form. I didn't think Vitality were going to lose. So, to be fair, I only saw one of the maps. I only saw Inferno against Vitality, and that was really close, where Vitality actually had a pretty good CT side. So I'm not entirely sure what happened on Mirage, but it's just, that one was the more surprising to me.
I look at this, right, and I really start asking some questions about where the rest of the year is and online Counter-Strike is going to take us. We're already in October, but like, we've had different periods of dominance from different teams. And I know it's online, and I know when I say dominance, it's not like an Astralis era of dominance, but it's like teams who have been towards the top 4 of almost like every single event they've been going in, or they've been consistently in grand finals. Like, the most recent one we've had is Heroic, right? You think about their run, and I know it's just from the DreamHack Open Summer, but it was DreamHack Open Summer Grand Final versus Big. They lost that. They won Cologne. They did pretty decent in EPL. They made top 3. And then, well, they bomb out last in this one, right? But then you have Big before that. Big towards the tail end of the player break, they were doing really good. You had Vitality, they were doing pretty good. They were making the finals. So those kind of names are the ones that we're kicking around with, right? Because we started off the year with, oh, Complexity, Dark Horse. We underestimated them. They look good. They're putting lots of work. Fantastic. Oh, Na'Vi, fuck yeah, everyone's playing great. Super good atmosphere. Perfecto's come in. Guardian, yeah, da-da-da-da-da. Great. And then everything goes to shit. And when everything goes to shit, okay, well, Fnatic won the first season of EPL this year, but then you look at them in this event, and you look at them up into this event, and they haven't looked like a threatening team. Like Vitality play high variance Counter-Strike. They play risky CS, right? They're playing very, very fast. They're playing off their individuals a lot. There's a big clutch factor in there. FaZe Clan, they had their individuals show up in this tournament, but they don't normally have their individuals show up, right? I don't even look at their style of play as anything that is you can count on a lot, because I think if you go back and you watch a lot of the rounds they were winning, it was because players were getting multi-kills. Like there was a round where Cold Zero walked out mid to B with like 18 seconds left on the clock in a 3-on-5 and hits these fucking 3 banging headshots to go, one coming mid doors behind him, one at car, and then kills out the AWP or whoever it was pushing through a CT spawn smoke and wins a round. And it's like I'm watching these and I'm going, it doesn't feel like this is consistently, we can't replicate this consistently just because of the sheer amount of events we have going on. Like G2 for one period of this year, we're like, fuck yeah, things are working. Kenny's hitting every shot with the AWP. Hunter's entry fragging everywhere. Jax's aim's on point. Nexa as an in-game leader is looking fantastic. He's all over the map. He's roaming around. But now they look shit as well. And it's like, is this just a symptom of having so many games and it's impossible to be consistent?
Do you want the small stat? Actually, I can let you guys guess.
Okay.
How many number 1 ranked teams we had in this year?
I would
Like
say
different
8,
teams.
8 or 9, 8. I would say.
Anyone else?
Na'Vi is one. Astralis
Just
are back.
like just give a guess.
Just
10,
off the cuff.
around 10.
I'm gonna say 7.
Actually, it was 8. So gla1ve.
Oh my
Okay.
god.
He's nailed it.
8 number 1.
I'm so lucky.
Just to note it: Astralis, Heroic, Na'Vi, Vitality,
BG.
Evil Geniuses, Big. Then these guys didn't make it. Then G2 and Fnatic.
Jesus Christ. Okay. So the year's fucked, basically.
But
What about
Chad-
Fnatic number 1?
Chad,
What?
this is what you want, right? You want a different
I don't.
champion of every event, right?
That's not what I want.
That's what the community want. They don't want to see Astralis win all the time.
They need, but that's the thing that the community knows about as much as they want, as players know what formats they want. gla1ve, if I'm going to be honest with things for a second, mate.
Very
but
true.
the thing that people at home need to understand is when Astralis is the best team in the world, and you're all sitting there going, "Man, this is so boring that they keep winning." First of all, understand how fucking difficult it is to win, and then understand how difficult it is to keep winning, and then. The fantastic thing that Astralis do for everybody that isn't an Astralis fan is give you a clear target. Somebody not to hate, but somebody to put in the box of, fuck, we got to beat them. They're the kings
That's
of the
true.
castle. And with that, we build the storyline and you guys get excited. When that plucky underdog Furia comes up against fucking Astralis later and you've got Art, he's running in like a madman. And Dupree, he just can't take him down on the entries and he keeps going in with... Then we get excited, guys. That's what we get excited about. That's what we want. But
That's good.
The times that I got most excited in 2018, 2019, and I know you're probably not gonna share this with me, gla1ve, is when you guys lost to somebody, because that meant somebody did something special, right? Because it was you that they took down.
I mean, when I watch like other sports, I watch other games. I always cheer for the underdog, right?
Yeah.
We just love to cheer for the underdog. It just feels good.
It was just it just created so much more excitement from when you guys actually lost, just because you were obviously mega consistent. So
So this year, right, I guess we can keep talking about this final and we can bring OG into the mix with this as well. But do we think, and we'll keep with you here, gla1ve, do we think that, and you have a chance to do this because you're in a team, that there'll be a consistent number 1 as the year tapers off?
Not this year, I think. I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so this year. If it were to be someone, it would probably be Astralis, I think. But
I think that's what everybody thinks anyway.
but yeah.
I mean,
guess-
Vitality had a point where they were really, really consistent.
Yeah, that's true.
And they still kind of are. They're still keeping
They're
like
making
a pretty good
playoffs.
score. I think they're still making playoffs all the time. I don't think they bombed out at any point in the last like 5 months or something. Maybe I'm forgetting something, but I don't think so.
Striker, I think you'll have a fun time at the end of the year when you have that like
Oh
top
fuck,
10
man!
top
I was
10
just
teams of
thinking
the
about
year
this
article.
actually. Yeah.
That's gonna be pretty fun.
I mean,
whatever you
fortunately-
put down, people will just flame the shit out of
Yeah,
you.
fortunately, it is based on basically the ranking and like how many points they earned in a certain. There's like a certain formula to that, but it is not entirely not biased. Sure, I can like tinker with like the requirements or whatever, but it is based on the ranking, so it's not like something that I just decide off the cuff. At least that goes in my favor.
At Striker HLTV.org.
We should probably just dive in as well, talk about OG a little bit, because I know if I don't, I'll get flamed by all the OG fans out there. The fact that they made their first grand final ever, that's a great step. But I want to ask you, gla1ve, what do you make of that team? Like, you look at that team and the players on it. How far do you think they can go? Do you think they can be a consistent team in the top 10?
I don't think so. I think maybe some of the players could be stolen if they perform good enough. So let's say a guy like gla1ve, he does a really good job. At some point, he could move to another team. I think
Astralis
maybe.
8,
Like
there it
Astralis.
is.
No, I'm not saying that. That was you. I think maybe like a team like FaZe or something. I think he should have joined some time ago. I think he's good enough for it. I think he's a really good player, and now he's starting to perform again. And when he is performing, he has some kind of impact on the game. So yeah, I think like some of the players is good enough to get somewhere else. I'm not sure if they have the team to be a consistent, let's say, top 5 team in the world, because I just feel like they have too many players that doesn't have the level it takes to be there, to be up there. They don't have enough stars, I think.
Yeah, that's our critique normally is that there's not enough firepower going on in that team, right? And if it was, it would have to be the perfect storm. Like Alexi making perfect calls and being all over the map, finding impact. Volde with the star level, Mantu performing at his level, which is actually surprised. I think Mantu has to be one of the surprises, right? Like in the last year and a half, probably one of the biggest surprises. He's actually super legit. And then you have Issa, who's playing on probably 80 ping all the time, the poor guy. And then obviously MBK in the mix there. Just it's hard to round out with that team. Prof, what did you make of all of it with their run?
I don't know. I actually liked just the fact that we had Kjerby in great form and OG in the grand final while you were casting it. I just found that kind of amusing because you obviously hate both of them. Just nothing else, just pure hate for the OG and Kjerby. I don't know. It's just like as we already like kind of established. I guess if they didn't make it to a final in this year with everything happening, that would be a tragedy. Like, show some consistency and then we can talk about it.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on then. We won't dwell too long on that. We'll start talking about this report. Striker, did you catch this? Nivera to Vitality. What legitimizes this? Do we have anything?
Well, it was just a report from the French guys from now.
Okay. These are normally pretty legit, though, right?
Exactly. He has his finger on the pulse, so he should have a pretty decent idea. Yeah, that's just about it. They're just thinking about getting a 6th man. Although, I don't see this being like the same thing as well. Perhaps God knows what's going to happen with Astralis, right? But I don't see that as like a legit 6-man roster.
Well, let's talk about his strengths for a second here, right? Because him as an individual, he's done some AWPing when he was there on Heretics, right? Like more like a secondary AWPer.
Actually, like in the last month, he has more like AWP kills like percentage than Maka. So
that is
something that has been happening. I don't know if they've been splitting, maybe just that they're splitting, but the maps that they played are more down like Nivera's AWPing than the other guys. Maybe it should be like 50-50, but in the last month he has like a higher percentage. So I'm not sure what that means. Maybe it means he's going to come in and replace ZywOo, and ZywOo is going on a break.
There it is. You've heard it here first, but
you did not hear it from me.
Heretics are playing FaZe right now, so if Heretics get bodied by FaZe and only win like a total of 6 rounds over 2 maps, you know the team's dead. That's normally how these things work. Actually, that counteracts the JKS conversation because 100 Thieves beat Liquid last night. Anyway, we won't get stuck into that. We'll get stuck into 100 Thieves news. Nivera screams brother to Vitality. Potentially, that's the report. We'll see what happens. We'll probably cover it when the official news comes out. 100 Thieves. Now, this earlier in the day was reported on by HLTV.org, and then now, since Nadeshot has released a video on the 100 Thieves Twitter, basically citing that the team was dropped or will be dropped after IEM New York. Now, I have... I know the boys. I had an idea that this kind of a maneuver was happening. Now, it kind of adds more to the narrative right now to do with North American Counter-Strike and the problems that we're having over there. If people aren't too familiar with it, Valorant right now is soaking up a lot of resources over in that side of things, and also being landlocked in a country that is in hot water, I would say, considering how things are being handled over there. The way to get out, other countries don't want North Americans coming in right now. Things are pretty rough for the teams.
Funny thought I actually had?
Sure.
100 Thieves, their Valorant team is Nitro, Steel, Hiko, and some 2 other guys that I have no idea who they are.
Yeah.
Like, in NA at the moment, tell me they couldn't use that team as a CS team and be like team. Top 6 in NA.
Yeah, they could.
Yeah.
They literally could. So they're just an idea for Mr. Nadeshot. That's it.
We'll send him a message. I'm sure
he can send me like a bunch of merch for this business idea. That's all I'm asking for.
It's apparel. All right. Okay, it's apparel. Now, we were talking about this just before we went live, gla1ve. Do you think, let's first of all talk about the team as a whole. Do you think the other 4 will stay together, or do you think they'll all split up and go their separate ways?
I mean, I think they will split up and go separate ways, but I actually have no idea. You could hope that they will stay together, find an organization, maybe in the US or in Europe or something, and find a new teammate, the last guy, and then play together still. But I think they will split up.
And what do you think this kind of means for North American Counter-Strike? I've heard rumors of other teams potentially looking to leave. I've heard rumors of teams, stalling out contract negotiations and stuff that have been going on at the moment in that sort of thing. Do you think North American Counter-Strike's in for a bit of trouble?
Yeah, it sounds like, and I think it's really sad to see, because we actually have a lot of really good Counter-Strike players over in North America, and I feel like that there's a lot of more potential over there. There's so many people. I know E-League tried to bring some non-core viewers in and stuff like that, and it didn't really work out. It worked out really good for us in Denmark, but we are a much smaller country, so I think it's tough to do the same over there. But I think there is more potential, and I think, maybe Valorant is hurting it a bit too much right now, hurting CS too much.
When we're looking at this striker and this kind of a move here, if JKS is going to complexity, would you see any homes for the other players if you were just spitballing off the top of your head?
Honestly, very, very hard to see them being at least not all of them, being able to find a team, especially with how many players have already left the scene in North America, and basically there not being enough like competitive teams at the towards the top. So I'm not entirely sure that there are even enough spots to fit in even experienced players, like an Azure or somebody like that. So it's just like it's kind of sad.
JKM obviously has spots, especially probably in Europe. So.
Sure. Yeah, I can definitely see like JKM getting a spot in Europe, or even like sure they could probably get a spot in Europe, but it's not going to be like a contender for a top 10 spot like 100 Thieves were. It's probably going to be somewhere closer to the top 30 just because of how insane the pool is in Europe already. They don't have to reach into Australian players who are not even stars in their teams. So that's just it's sad, but the only resolution that I see for them is just go back to Australia and like bolster a Renegades, make that team a little bit better again, and try to do the same thing again as they did before, just with another set of players.
Thing is, like, I don't think that I agree with what Sponge tweeted out today. Like, number one, like there isn't even. I'm not saying that they are better than worse than the Renegades players, but it's hard to even justify changing at this point, because these guys have been destroying everyone. And when you look at like the form of Liaz and Gratis faction, of course different opponents, but there's no sense in making that move, and they're stuck there in COVID and all of this stuff. I think they should either stick around in NA or go to Europe and grind their fucking ass off to find a place and like reinvent themselves and play like the roles that they played back in Australia. Like both of them used to be star players for their teams. So I think that's the way they should go if they want to make a career out of it. And like, I don't know.
Wasn't there some rumors saying at some point that jkaN would go to like a Scandinavian team or Danish team or something?
I think that is something that he said that he'd like to do at some point. I'm not entirely sure that was an actual report, but I have heard something along those lines too. Yeah.
Now I know that they're worth a lot of money in terms of their buyout for those guys. I don't know what's going to happen to their buyout now that 100 Thieves have announced that they're dropping them at the end of New York.
Then it's probably zero, right?
I don't know. I don't know exactly if it'll get dissolved or what's going to happen with that. I'd say they'd try and sell them and maybe hold on to that. I'm really not too sure. Okay. I might have to reach out and ask that question. But I know that if I had two prize chickens, they would be JKS and Jacob. So there's probably the offers are for those main two right there. And if the rumor's true, then Justin's already been bought. But what I've heard is that Jacob's buyout's pretty hefty as well. So maybe that's the reason that he doesn't have any rumors circulating around right now. Nobody is willing to front it with that cash. We might have to just wait and see what happens. But I tweeted today for the others to see it, and I probably should reach out to them. But if they see this, I think this is just a really important thing because we've had Australian players in the past. Yam and Ricky are probably some of the names that stick out. Havoc, if you want to go back a couple of years, but the ecosystem was much different. But don't go home if you can avoid it. Don't go back to Australia. Especially don't go back to Australia now. It might seem really tempting, and you might think that you can restart your career after you go home and then get offers again. It's not going to happen, boys. It's just not going to happen. So really be aggressive about how you weigh up your future. I understand that this is a temporary thing for all of us, and to stay around in the esports world is not an easy thing to do. And especially if you go back to one of the most isolated countries in the entire world, you will completely and utterly ruin any chances that you have to remain in esports, especially Counter-Strike. If you can stay in North America and play on a team, or even if it means that you have to play Valorant, right? And I'm saying that like you're being put in prison, but you're not. Like, consider those options, because you look at what's happened to the other guys who have come before and where they are now. It's not, if you want to stay in esports, going home is not the right move, no matter what is said.
But do you see why it's really tempting for people to go back home for maybe 1-2 months and then maybe go to Europe afterwards or something?
But here's the problem. Right now, if you go back to Australia, you're not leaving. COVID restrictions down there have locked the borders. For example, my home state of Western Australia, I was talking to my mum yesterday. She told me that they're not going to open, or they're not even thinking of opening the borders in my state. This is just so other people, this is like having somebody from Ulvenza being able to come see you, gla1ve. This is what we're talking about. My sister lives in Melbourne. She can't go to Perth to see my parents. And that is considered to be locked down until April next year.
Oh my God.
And right now in Perth, like there's basically no COVID. Like they don't even wear masks. Like they just live a fucking normal life down there, and they're in a strict lockdown, and it's almost been this way the entire year. So like if you go home, you're not getting back out. They're not letting people in without, I think it's business class flights, and then you have to self quarantine. They won't even put you up in a hotel. You have to pay for your own hotel. And then if you want to leave, you need to get an exemption from the government to be able to leave. So it's just now more than ever, it's probably not worth it. So if they can stay. If you can't, I don't know.
Well, in that case, I would hope for the trio to remain and just move to Europe. Hope to get an organization, create a semi-new team with the same core, have same kind of standards. Get a couple of European players.
Another team or what?
I'm not sure that all three would be able to join like different teams. Two
of them maybe.
What?
Two of them could go somewhere. Like a Genji.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Got it.
But if they wanted to stay together and try and maintain the RMR points.
I think the problem is like you don't want to stay in North America. I think the move right now is just to go to Europe and get our organization there. Rather than, unless Genji also are planning to move to Europe more over the long term, unless that is the plan, then I don't see how that is the solution, to be honest. I just see Europe as the only way for them to stay relevant for the nearest future, for sure.
Yeah, it's just a weird time like this for everybody. Let's do we got anything?
Lia's two movie star riders heard it here first.
What the okay.
Jesus Christ.
Just jokes aside, I think Lias has the most, like, he showed the least of his potential in this team, in my opinion. I think he has a lot more to give, and hopefully he sticks around.
He had the
that's what I'm
biggest
saying.
role overlap in that team. He had to
Yeah.
change most of his stuff because he was what
like
we
mini
considered
JKS,
exactly.
right?
We considered Lias to be the next JKS, and then coming in with JKS. Well, you're obviously not going to get your positions, are you? So
Yeah.
maybe Jay can offer some more moving forward. But let's keep the show moving forward. Let's go into the DreamHack Open Fall discussion. Now, I think another one here, gla1ve. We can kick it off with you because it's a ranking event for the majors. But we don't even know when the next major is going to be. So how important is this?
I mean, on paper, it's pretty important, right? Because there will be probably a major at some point, and then you need the points. But as a player, it's really tough to motivate yourself to play for the points right now when there's like no vision in the future of a major. So I would say we're not playing for the points. We're just playing to prove that we are the best team in the world. Because there is no major, and I would like there to be no major, but I don't think it will happen anytime soon.
So with that, is there anything that you think could be done from a Valve perspective? Because I want to, the way that I look at it is that Valve, if I'm Valve, the reason I've indefinitely postponed the major is because if I say, all right, guys, no major this year, but we'll put it in the next major window next year, and then COVID just goes fucking mental again, and we're like, well, we can't have it. Then they're like, okay, guys, sorry, we know you all rebooked tickets and everything, but we're going to kick it into November. And then the same thing happens again. It's like, oh, fuck, we can't do it. The thing that Valve want to avoid is kicking the can down the road. And that's getting everybody's hopes up. Every time they do that, it's like, oh, the major's coming. Oh, the major's not coming, right? But they still need to make sure that they're keeping their finger on the pulse. If it gets okay, let's say tomorrow some fucking mad genius comes out with a COVID thing and he can, we can make it rain and everybody's cured, right? Let's say that crazy thing happens. Valve needs to be ready to go. So what I look at these events as is just a way to kind of measure or temper the water to see where everybody's at through the most open circuit format as possible. So the justification for them needing to do it, it's there. But how do we incentivize it more than just, we want to prove we're the best team in the world? Do you think there's any options that Valve could do here to help make this a bit more of a spotlight event?
I think it's really tough for Valve to do anything right now in this situation. I can't come up with any ideas that would make the players do more to win those kind of events. I think the armor points is what is necessary for us to qualify, and we all know that. It's just so tough to do when there is no major. But
what about something like this? Well, I know, and this probably would never happen. But what if they integrated something that the teams that made it to the top 8 or the top 4 or the whatever, you had like spotlight matches, and let's not say you maybe didn't have stickers, but you had something that the community could be involved
in-game integration of some sort. Yeah,
that would be crazy. That would be perfect. That would be fucking insane. But I'm not seeing that happen. But if that were to happen, I think that would give a lot for both the community and the players. But we have also the global challenge. We can't forget about that. So if you win the DreamHack Open, you will be directly qualified for the global challenge in December, I think.
Is that something that you as a team have discussed, that if you were to qualify for it, you would go, even given the current circumstances?
Like, our main goal right now is to qualify for the global challenge.
Okay,
that's for sure. That's what we need to do, because that's the only hope we have as a team to go to a LAN event in December, maybe in a studio. We don't know for sure. It could be played online, but still, it would just be so nice to get to a tournament again and play that. So we really want to qualify for that.
Okay.
Also, just think about it. Like, you want to qualify just in case it happens on LAN. Imagine like you being the team that sits out, and it's like all of the best teams are there playing the first LAN since like March. You don't want to be home during that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess that's something to incentivize it even more. So now, Lucas, I just sent you the groups. Can you bring that out for everybody at home? So just looking at these groups, we're going to bring them up on screen for everybody, but for our audio only listeners, we'll run through these groups. Now, Group A is Vitality, Fnatic, OG, and Mouse Sports. Group B is G2, Astralis, Heroic, and Endpoint. That's exciting. We get Astralis, Heroic again. Group C is Godsent, Big, FaZe, and Saw. And Group D is ENTS, North, NIP, and Sprout. So off the bat here, Striker, who are the biggest names that we're missing going into this? Complexity?
Yeah.
Who else are we missing?
Who was
I
We're
think
missing Navi.
they're in the
yeah,
CIS
because
one.
they're
CIS, yeah.
CIS, yeah,
Oh
of
yeah.
course.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Theirs starts tomorrow, Navi's, for the
Okay.
CIS one here. So this is
I don't
GSL
think we're
best of
particularly missing
3.
anybody else.
No, I think we're almost still right.
There's like
So
Spirit is the next best ranked team that can.
And they're
actually, that's
CIS as
CIS
well.
too. Never mind. Yeah.
okay, so we have everybody. So I sent you a loaded question there. So instead of that, let's go with the question at hand here. Which one do you think is the hardest group out of these?
Well, I mean, I think we know which one is the easiest one.
Group D.
And the
Yes.
hardest one.
The hardest one.
I think it's pretty.
Do you think it's
straightforward.
yours?
No,
Or is
I
you
think
think it's A?
I think it's A.
A.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
of course.
I think A for sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. It's like the thing is like 3 of those teams are relatively like similar level at this point. I think
Yes, exactly.
I would still put Vitality a little bit above them all, even after this run from OG, just because of what I was saying earlier. Like Vitality outside of Pro League, they've just done really well in the last 6 months or so. So I think I'd still put them head above shoulders everybody else, but those other 3 teams are really close together, I think.
Yeah, honeymoon period for Mouse. Fnatic obviously showing a little bit better form in IEM New York, and OG just making the final there. So that one's a tough one. With Group B, now obviously Astralis beating Heroic last time round, you go into that game as favorites again here. Do you think the third time in the space of 3 weeks, it's a tougher matchup, or it starts to get easier, gla1ve?
I think it starts to get easier now that we have a win against them.
Okay.
Before that, they had like some kind of scariness above them because we didn't really. I mean, they performed so well individually. So for us to be able to beat them like we did last time just showed us that yeah, they're still humans and they're not like on top of the world. And I have mad respect for what they have been doing in the last couple of months. I actually think they're a really good team. So I'm really much looking forward to that game. I mean, we know how hard it is to stay on top. So to see them be number 1 in the world, we knew that it would be really tough for them to stay there because we have been trying it and we have been losing the number 1 spot several times. So yeah, but I still have mad respect for them.
Okay, and the other 2 teams in your group here are G2, who are rumoredly meant to be having a roster change, and Endpoint. Do you think there's real chance that Endpoint can beat G2 here? They've just made top 30. I saw them celebrating about that earlier in the
Did
day.
they make it finally?
They're 30th. They're 30th on the nose.
Jesus Christ, they've been so close for so long and so mad every time because they finished like they beat a couple of good teams. Updated ranking 33rd. They're like
They won
31
31
to 33, yeah.
31, 32, then dipped to 42. So this literally lasted for 6 months. Since May, they've been like 31st to like
Jesus.
42nd. So congrats to the boys.
All right, so do you reckon they can upset them, gla1ve?
I mean, they have a current win streak on 8. That is pretty good. I know it's tier 2 CS, but you shouldn't be surprised because actually tier 2 CS can be really good as well.
Sure.
So tier 2 CS has so many good players, and we're just waiting for them to bring out the talent and get on tier 1 teams at some point. So I believe they can do something. I know like G2 hasn't been looking that good lately, so maybe we're going to see something there with their game.
Well, I guess that makes your group a little bit easier as well, right? If G2 are coming in looking a bit rough, and then you have
Hopefully.
an Endpoint there. So who else we got in the mix here? Group C. Ooh, Group C is a bit of a mess, isn't it?
All over the place.
Yeah.
You have no idea what to expect from these teams now.
Godson have been boot camping though, Prof. You put any stock in that?
No.
No?
Not
Okay.
not much stock in that bootcamp, honestly.
So, okay. Well, this group is fucked then. If you don't put a lot of stock in Godsend, FaZe...
That bootcamp, if you looked at Sticko's Insta stories, and I know you do because you're the Insta story guy here, literally Maiden was like on a big screen. He wasn't at the bootcamp. They just had like a big TV with his webcam on, and he was playing from home because he couldn't travel. So
they got as many as they could, all right?
Yeah, it was as good. Yeah. Good.
It's
but yeah,
time.
Godsend is all over the place, and we talked about it before. They're the team that is in this. If everyone is making roster changes and buying new players and new orgs are coming in, that is the team that you're looking at. We need to steal talent from here. So I don't know what's going on, if they're going to change anything or not, if anyone's going to leave, but they are the team that is certainly getting some offers at the moment.
Sure. So, like, I don't want to completely disregard Saw from the conversation. A lot of people are probably not familiar with this team. They're from Portugal. They've got some names that you guys might remember. How do you say his name? Aki? Is that how you say it? And Roman RMN, I believe that's Roman.
Mutus is probably the
He's been around for a while as well. He used to play with Fox, right?
Yep.
Just and Stadodu. That guy, he looks jacked. Anyway, that's Saw. So keep your eyes out on them. We won't expect them to do a lot, but if they do, fantastic work. We have Big and then FaZe in this group. Now, FaZe beat Big recently, and FaZe just won IEM New York. So does that mean we would consider them the favorite of Group C, gla1ve?
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, gla1ve actually had a pretty close game against Big last time they met. It was overtime on both of the first maps, and then they lost pretty big on the third map. So I would say that gla1ve has a chance of beating Big because they were so close last time. And you never know what type of FaZe you are getting, right? I mean, if cadiaN is playing as he did in the final because he wrote on Twitter, then he should just keep on doing that because that made him a lot better, that's for sure.
He did have a pretty good final. That's true. If the extra bit of banter helps him out, yeah. We had actually Yanko in the post game interview saying, this guy had just come back from an extended break in Counter-Strike, new roles, first time speaking English as the first language, and all these different hurdles. I think that, the thing which gets me the most is what they brought him into the team role-wise for, and now the roles that he's playing. Like, I look at that and I go, you guys should have just done this fucking shit.
I love how Yanko...
So what is the difference?
Like HLTV, for example, instead of being the Ivy player that he's done forever, now is playing the inner site, for example, on Train, right?
Okay.
They've also changed some roles around on Nuke. HLTV's anchoring ramp. And they've moved Kirby into a top side player. And on the T sides as well, Kirby is doing like a little bit of like extremity stuff, but most of the time, especially on set pieces, it looks like he's one of the first two in, doing more entry work.
That's good.
So they've changed him into more comfortable roles.
Yeah, that's nice.
My joke was that I really found it funny that Yanko was there in that interview, literally talking to you, saying like all of these guys criticizing Kirby, like how can they do it? It's literally he's literally talking to you about you, but not saying like Sponge, shut the fuck up. Like,
to be fair, when I said that Kirby was the worst roster move of 2020, I didn't say it's because Kirby was a bad player. I said it's because the positions and shit that he's come into the team for made absolutely no fucking sense. And they didn't, and they've now moved those positions. So
essentially, you're
kind of right. But it's made it look like not a bad roster move because they've done what they should have done in the beginning. So It's like, okay, well, I'm wrong when you just take the statement. I look like a fucking idiot, but that's my job, is to look like an idiot, and someone's going to do it.
Doing a great job, man. Just keep it up.
Thank you. And now we have Group D, where X7 gets his chance to come back into the ENTS roster on loan.
Meanwhile,
it's unbelievable how...
I don't know if you picked that up. He is playing in Havo. Super cool.
It's incestuous as fuck.
I don't think we need to say much about this group.
I'm just gonna say that it's unbelievable how these groups turned out. Like how this group is even possible just because of their RBAR rankings.
Yeah,
it's insane to me that this team doesn't even have a top 15. Is it top 20 even?
What are NIP now?
NIP are 16. And they didn't even have Knock in for the last month or so he's probably going to be a little bit rusty too coming into this. So it's just like this group is mega weak.
Well, let's put it this way: NIP should win this group, or something's fucked. That's the way I want to pose that. Because like coming into EPO and coming into Cologne, everyone's like, "Fuck, man, watch out for NIP. They're looking hot." And then they struggled, right? So Cologne they made top 4, and then EPL I think they dropped off. So I want to see NIP in a big way in this group.
And Nog is back as well, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I wanted to say one thing, which is kind of funny. Just overall about these RMR tournaments, they are here so we can rank how good teams are, right? And we have a lot of tournaments through the time, and then we figure out who's good, who's bad, and literally complexity. If the major happens in the next like 9 months, complexity is not going to qualify. I think that's more or less certain. And at the same time, it's impossible to say that they are not one of the like
best teams,
top 10 teams in the last year. So it's very interesting that managed to turn out like that way, that they fucked up every RMR event and all the other events they did well.
Yeah.
I don't know how like stuff like this is always going to happen, just like exceptions to the rule. I don't think the whole system is broken, but maybe it is an indicator that maybe there should be like one wild card spot to
this
be
is
given out
Valve we're talking about.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be an invite. Maybe it can be like a last chance tournament or something like that. I don't know.
A last chance tournament I could get behind, right? Like if they went and they actually used, like, for once they looked at things and went, okay, well, these guys have actually won tournaments and done and actually gone to, that we could probably get behind. And there's probably a lot of room for moving and shaking in the lead up to wherever that next major is. And I think if we open a dialogue with Valve, and I know that seems like a ridiculous thing to do, but the way we do that is by getting the players to email Valve, then we maybe can change some things. Do we want to dive any more into this RMR event? Do we want to move? Okay, let's keep it moving. We'll keep it moving. All right, so now we're going to get into a discussion about the tail end of this year and next year. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of excited for the idea of when we get to see Furia and EG go up against the likes of Astralis and Na'Vi. Now, gla1ve, you made a tweet not that long ago. I assume it was in jest, but joking about versing Furia in a matchup. Now, I don't know how much of their Counter-Strike you've watched, but is that something you think that'd actually be a decent challenge for you guys?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think Furia is looking really good. They're looking like the individual play is looking really sharp. They're coming up with new ideas for a lot of their games. You saw the boost on Vertigo that nobody ever seen before. You see Art going crazy offensive all the time, and I think he's even more offensive now than he were in the past. So yeah, I think actually we would have a great game against them.
Okay,
it'll be fun.
What do you make of that style though? Do you think it's something that they can get away with against teams who are a bit more punishing? Like, no offense to the North American region, but you get away with a bit more over there.
Yeah, I mean, the AWP can be really hard to shut down if they're just crouching and you're not really on point with the AK. So I think it will be more about shoulder peeking, and then when he goes offensive, you would probably try to get in a way, not maybe always go for the kill, because you would have a higher chance of him killing you before you kill him, and if you're not hitting an instant headshot, right? So I think that his style is working good, but I'm not too sure if it will work good in the future. But right now it's looking good for them.
It definitely enables Henny to be very good, like mid to late round, right? It's a dream as an AWPer to have another guy who's an AWPer who's insane, like open up rounds for you, and then you get like the chance just to sweep through. Like Henny's. Okay.
All right. I guess this is Lucas.
No, that's Striker. We've never had a technical issue of that variety before. That was Striker's mic just fucking blowing up. So I apologize to everybody for that little technical hitch. That just fucking took me out of the room. So everybody, let's just take a deep breath. Just take a moment. Just center yourself. Look around. Remember where you are. Remember where you're listening to this. What you're doing. We'll send Striker out to fucking the back and get him shot or some shit, because that was wild.
Okay.
That's what you do with animals that misbehave. But we'll get back on the conversation.
Pita in the chat.
Fucking hell. Okay. So we were talking about Furia. Okay, gla1ve, let's keep this going. What do you think about EG? Have you seen much of their stuff? Would you be like? Do you think that'd give you guys a good matchup as well?
Yeah, I think so, actually. I think EG and Furia is both looking pretty good. And I mean, it's tough to say, because maybe you could have an argument that says that the opponent isn't that well. But I just feel like when I see them play, I actually think that they have really good players, and they are playing good individually. Both Furia and EG, and I think especially Furia, I know that we mentioned Art a lot as an offensive player, aggressive player, but actually some of the other guys is really aggressive as well. Also the rival guys, and I think it's working out really well for them, because they have such good aims.
And then I think if we get to the third best team in North America right now, it would be Liquid. Yes. Now, they, from my perspective, look like they've lost their identity. What do you make of them at the moment?
Yeah, I think so too. It feels like they're trying to find themselves with a new in-game leader. I feel like Nitro was a pretty good player for them. I feel like he did his job good, and I don't feel like maybe that should have been the change. But maybe they felt like, I know, maybe they have something with communication or something that you don't see. But I think that Nitro was a pretty good player.
Yeah, since obviously the addition of Grim, Stewie taking over the in-game leadership role, and the fact that they're also trapped in this whole, I guess, COVID situation. Everybody else is. Liquid just aren't clicking for whatever reason. That could change. Obviously, Moses is there as a coach now. It might just be some teething issues. There's a lot of discussion around them not having a main AWPer. Do you think that has anything to do with it?
I mean, I think every team should have a main AWPer, and your main AWPer should be one of your star players, because the AWP is really effective, and you need to put one of your best players on the AWP. I know it sounds much easier than it actually is, because I couldn't just put Dupree or someone on the AWP and he would be as good as Device, but you need to have a star AWP player to be one of the best teams in the world.
Okay. Now let's keep this going, Prof, because I assume Striker's like dead. Is he back? He's back.
Anybody's ears, am I?
Hey, you're back.
A bit quiet though.
You know how I know how bad it was? I heard it through your mic's back.
Oh my god.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. I have no idea.
That's all right. We're back now. We're all in the room now. We're obviously talking about this intercontinental matchups that we might get tail end of the year for the global challenge. We won't get anybody from Asia or Australia, right? Like the Renegades and Tyloo, even though Tyloo have actually been defeated recently, but those guys were looking pretty undefeated there. And also, we're not going to put them on the same pedestal as we would as the top teams in North America and the rest of Europe, right? But Prof, do you think this is something that, if it happened more often, would add to the excitement level? Do you think this maybe is a happy, I don't want to say happy accident, but it's like a kind of like silver lining of this bullshit we're all in at the moment, is we have some excitement about seeing these teams go toe to toe now?
Yeah, I mean, we're having excitement seeing things that we used to take for granted. I think that's if that's what you're going for. I think just talking to other people that watch CS, this is something that is needed. Like but people are just fed up of watching the same teams, especially when what we talked about at the beginning, we don't even have a clear favorite, so we don't even have clear underdogs. We just have teams playing, right? This team, this week it's Heroic #1, next team it's Vitality, now it's Astralis, whatever. So at least bringing in North American teams to play against European teams, we could see like different styles. We could see different people going against each other. Like this is something that from a viewership, like not viewership, but like from a viewer perspective, I think is needed, and it will be pretty exciting to see.
Yeah, we obviously know that different things are going down next year. ESL have already announced a big chunk of their stuff. So maybe with these tournaments potentially being a bit more few and far between, we'll get more of that anyway if we return back to normality. But before we can get there, COVID is kind of just a way of life at the moment. So this can segue us into the next topic here we have to do with the CSPPA and the safety protocols and LAN. Now, Striker, are you up to date with this stuff?
I mean, to be fair, they never really said anything specific. It's not all that interesting. It's just a thing that they put out just to make it clear that they're working towards, having certain things put in place, certain protocols put in place so that the LAN can happen, in a reasonably safe way, right? It's just basically that's what it is. And so, yeah, we haven't really heard what that means. It's just going to be some certain ways that they deal with travel, the actual tournament, how close the teams, players are to each other. These kind of things is probably what we can expect. The same thing that we see, for example, with the League of Legends World Championship, where they have like desks that are like 10 meters long and they're like 2 meters apart from each other. These kind of things is just not very exciting. It's just something that needs to be done in order for the LAN to happen as safe as possible.
Now, gla1ve, we touched on this a little bit earlier in the show, but we may as well pick it up here again now. So you guys saying that the priority, or not the priority, but a priority for the end of the year is qualifying for the global challenge.
Yeah.
With that in mind, there has to have been a discussion with the team of what precautions would need to be taken for you guys to get to wherever that the final. Did they announce where it was going to be for global challenge?
Well, I guess it would be in Germany.
That would probably make the most sense. Yeah. So like,
I think it was mentioned as Cologne.
Okay.
As the place. Yeah.
The thing is, like, I didn't want to say that, and
not
announced it yet, and sound like I'm fucking giving away information here. But so with that in mind, gla1ve, like, what precautions would be off the top of your head, if any?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it going into like talking about the Rio Major, what would be necessary for us to go over there and play and stuff like that. And I think something that is pretty important is that we don't have a lot of people being affected by the coronavirus, the country we are going in. I think that would be a pretty valid point. And of course, there would be something about keeping distance between each other. Like you said, in China, they have the long tables and stuff. So maybe something like that. I think if we get closer to the global challenge, or when we get closer, and if we're going to qualify, we would probably have more talks, both with the organizer, with the CSPPA, within the team, and to make everybody comfortable going anywhere.
So have you been have you done a test yet for COVID at all?
Yeah, I did once. It's some time ago now, but I did.
So is that something that you'd be comfortable doing like several times throughout an event?
Yeah, for sure. I know in Premier League, I'm talking with one of my friends. He's playing for Chelsea.
Okay.
They are getting tested twice a week, and they can't change clothes in the room with each other and stuff like that. So they're taking a lot of precautions, and I think we could take. Of course, we're not going to change clothes, but together. But we could do some precautions as well to make sure that it would be as safe as possible.
Sure, I think that this is one of these strange things where it's like, this is one of the difference makers when we don't have a league like League of Legends, for example, where everybody is basically owned by Riot, because there's a few issues that I see here, regardless of what's put in place by the TO, and this is where the players, the support staff, everybody involved with the event has to buy in that this needs to be protected at all costs, right? Because let's say, for example, ESL bring all the teams here. Everybody who comes is going to be quite familiar with Cologne, right? We've all been here a bunch of times. All the teams have been here like over the last couple of years for ESL 1 Cologne or for other events that have been going on here. And everybody's familiar with the city. All it takes is for like one person or like a couple of players or a couple of support staff or a couple of like cameramen or whatever to go out and to break the quarantine, and for everything that we're all doing to be completely and utterly just for nothing, right? Like that's all it would take. And like the ESL, let's use them as the example here because this is the event we're talking about, don't have any control over if the players were to just get up and leave their hotel room, right? Like and go out to fucking Zulpichstraße, which is the party street here in Cologne, and go and have a couple drinks, and there's hundreds of Germans everywhere, right? Who could potentially be infected. There's no control, and that right there is a scary thing. So I think that when everybody buys into this, they have to be willing to sacrifice those things to play LAN. Like that's what has to be noted for everybody going into this. But it's obviously possible, right? Like this is obviously possible for us to pull off. Now, there's always going to be the argument of, is this the right decision? Well, no one knows. Like we can err on the side of caution literally indefinitely. We don't know. Nobody has ever been who is currently living in the world, I would assume, has been in a global pandemic of this scale before, unless you lived forever.
I mean, even if they were alive in like the Spanish flu, it was like a different world. Everything was different. Like people didn't travel that much in general. Like you didn't have planes for like 50 euros to go anywhere in the world, like on the same continent or whatever. So stuff like that wasn't really a thing. Internet wasn't a thing. So you just like chilled at home, lived in the woods. I don't want to say like had friendly animals and whatever. That was the whole life, right?
The thing is, I'm not trying to have the conversation right now because I know a lot of people might take this the wrong way, like trying to say, oh, we should. I'm not trying to say we should go to LAN or we should just get on with life or whatever. I definitely am not saying that. But what I'm saying is that this needs to be something where everybody has their own kind of moral take on it and look at the world and look at what's happening and actually, understand the situation at hand and go, okay, well, this is what I think is the right choice. Or if I go by these restrictions, then, I'm doing the right thing. Like everybody kind of has to come to that decision on their own, what's best for them and what they think is best for everybody around them. And that right there, I don't know. I can't even fathom having to be the one coming up with that kind of protocol, or like right now there's people.
I mean, the helpful part is that we're not paving the way here. We're not the first ones to go LAN or whatever.
You're right.
F1 has been going on for a couple of months now. Football has been going on. NBA has been restarted as well. It's just we're far from the first ones, and we can learn from what whatever these guys are doing. What League of Legends World Championship is going on with all kinds of different precautions that are kind of public, and obviously, ESL can talk to Riot and then ask about what they're doing and stuff like that. So it's just we have plenty of space to see what others are doing and to learn from that and introduce the same protocols.
Do you guys think that we are like late with doing all this because we have the possibility of playing online and the other sports doesn't?
I guess
it was just safer for us. Yeah, I mean, we didn't. The thing is, like, obviously, football and everything, like, they literally just there was instant death for their sports for several months in a row. So for them, obviously, it's much more important to get back as soon as possible. For us, we still kept going to a certain degree, right? Maybe it's not. I don't know what the financial side of it is. How much, like, certain companies have taken a hit, especially tournament organizers, obviously, who are probably the most important in this. But obviously they didn't take the same kind of losses that football or whatever took after not being able to run for several months in a row. So I guess if we were late in the sense that we probably could have done the same thing just a couple of months earlier, but at the same time we had the option to do otherwise without sacrificing the space or sacrificing the industry. So I guess that's the key difference.
But isn't it as well, though, that a lot of these sports that we're talking about have had to like quarantine everybody in certain bubbles? Like, isn't that what happened for like the NBA? They're in that bubble, right?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
We to do that again would like be using more of the Riot model than the free open circuit model, and ours is a lot more global anyway, right? Like, I don't know exactly. Like, I know in Australia, for example, with our Aussie rules football, they were having like 2 states, so they had as like quarantine states that the teams could stay and play their games in, and they weren't allowed to. They were flying them all out, all the other states, and they got locked in those places. I don't know if it ever happened. I was just reading something in the news. Whereas for us, like, imagine if we locked, like, how would we share that? It'd be like we'd need Flashpoint, Blast, ESL, Starladder, everybody to go, hey guys, let's all be friends all of a sudden, and let's bring everybody. Like, for us, unfortunately, we don't have that flexibility.
Well, at the same time, though,
in theory, they could do it, but imagine how you even share the expenses. If ESL is like
they can't even share expenses on flights, mate.
Yeah, 65% of the matches, then you need to pay like 65% of this, but then you get the better weekends. Then I can imagine that being a fucking nightmare, right?
So, look, just looking at this overall, to cap this off for this discussion for the end of the year, it's possible, is what we've basically said here, but it's just a matter of if we get there or not, right? And that's going to be up to the teams and the players and the organizations and the TOs to make things as safe as possible, and for people to make that choice themselves. Now, I wouldn't mind taking a look at this next bit here. You've put ESL and the DreamHack schedule for 2021 in the mix here, Prof. Is this to do with I forget when this news even came out.
It came out, I think, before the last episode, but we didn't mention it at all. I don't know. We're kind of getting late, so I don't know how much we can fit.
Okay. gla1ve, how much longer can we have you for, mate? If you need to go, let us know and we can wrap it up.
I'm good.
You're good? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's dive into this quickly. We'll close this one off and then we'll do some questions with you. Lucas, I'm going to send you a link just quickly. Bring this up and then scroll on down. Now, for those people who missed it, ESL announced their updated Pro Tour stuff for next year. And with that, once this link is brought up, you'll see, like in the first one there's something to do with a new studio that they're meant to be building. They didn't announce where that studio is going to be just yet. It doesn't look like it.
No.
And then they have there's all these little buttons you can press, the dates, a new vision, all that kind of stuff. But it looks like, right, they've got their 2 master championships still. That's IEM Katowice and ESL 1 Cologne. That's what the EPT is for, the ESL Pro Tour, the points that you're collecting there. They've got their 2 Pro League seasons, which is meant to be including 24 teams. Have they upped that?
No,
they haven't upped that. Okay. I was thinking, my brain thought they had upped
We've had
that.
24.
Yeah, I just trying, but I guess because we were split this year because we had regionals, so my brain's kind of forgotten where we're at. DreamHack Masters, there's only 1 of those, so normally 2 of those in a year. Now there's just 1. That probably comes with the whole announcement about the more commingling going on between the 2 companies. IEM Melbourne in here with some Astralis as the name, and then you've got a North American IEM event and an Asian IEM event in there as well. So they've downscaled their events, right, Prof? They've seems like we're missing 1 or 2 here from normal.
I would say so. Do they have the IEM in Asia, right? So that would be the Beijing or something. But overall, seems like a few few less events.
And I guess the bigger thing here for those people who are curious is as you scroll down, Lucas, if you're with us, you get down to there's a graphic there with a slider. It's like Masters tournaments and Master Championship tournaments. You can actually see week 1 and week 2. And I think this is where like a lot of the backlash I was reading was talking about ESL taking up more space with their events. But what it looks like they're doing here is they're giving more prep and lead in time. And I think that was part of the core message that they've led with here is that they want to be able to hype these up more. So for a Masters tournament, which is like your DreamHack Masters or your IEM Beijing, for example, what we're doing right now would be a Masters level tournament traditionally. 16 teams, group stage, and then 4 teams make it to the playoffs instead of 6 is what we were rocking with before. And those playoffs is a weekend later, which is giving time for content production, which I assume is going to be focusing in on the matches more and hyping those events a little bit more.
It is definitely also just, I guess, easier to do from a technical standpoint. You don't have the group stages being at the location. The group stage will be always at the studio, wherever that is. Let's just say it's like somewhere in Europe, Germany, whatever. Let's assume. And then from that, the teams that make the playoffs, only those teams fly to the location. So you don't have to go like to Australia and set up a group stage there for like 4 days, or go to, I don't know, Shanghai, set up a group stage there every time for essentially the same group stage, right?
Yeah.
It's just in a different place, but it looks the same. It's the same backdrop, same PCs, same everything. So
that's normally very costly as well, just for those people who aren't, because you're setting them up in hotels and having to use like conference room space. And then I know like firsthand in places like America and shit, they have like unions when they're building it, and then they obviously have to do it quite quickly, or you can't bring your own food into the hotel has to supply it. There's all that bullshit that starts happening. Whereas this year, if they control all the group stage themselves, and then the playoffs is the only thing they have to worry about in arena, is probably a little bit easier from that standpoint too, logistically. gla1ve, just looking at this, I assume ESL would have given you guys a breakdown on this, right? Did they give you a briefing or something?
I actually didn't look too much into it because I've just been too much with the tournaments and stuff.
Okay. Well, I guess I can't ask you what you I guess if you haven't looked at it at all, it's hard to ask you what you think about it. But the idea of having the group stage in a studio, in the same studio every time, and then the playoffs elsewhere that you have a 4-day or 5-day travel time to get to and prep for and do extra practice for your opponents. Does that seem like a good or a bad change just off the top of your head?
I mean, I think it's all right. I think it's pretty good. I mean, the only thing that is a concern for me is probably if we're going to travel in different time zones all the time. So we're going to studio, then we're going to Beijing, then we're going to studio, then we're going to New York. You know, that kind of stuff. I think that would be pretty tough for... I mean, I get pretty jet lagged. So, I mean, would probably be pretty tough, but I think it would be... We could work around it, maybe with some breaks in between and stuff like that.
It looks like here, I'm just looking at the dates right now, the closest like event finish to event start would be the EPL Season 14 finish, which is the 10th of October, and then the start of the next one, which would be in the studio, which we would assume is in Europe, would be on the 14th of October. So that's a pretty quick turnaround, but if the studio and the finals are both in Europe, then that's probably not so much of a big deal.
Oh, that's fine.
But the rest of them look like they're pretty decent gaps. For example, after Katowice finishes on the 28th of Feb, and then Pro League Season 13 starts on the 10th of March. So there's like, you know...
But some teams will probably be in like blast between those two things.
I forget about the rest of the landscape every now and again.
Yeah.
That's the concerning part for me, to be honest.
We need Blast to do the same thing, I guess. To do what ESL and DreamHack has now been doing with the schedule and stuff. We need Blast to do the same. So we can actually figure things out for next year.
So, like, is that the dream, to have everything announced, like, let's say now, so that you guys can start planning?
For sure, that would be so good for us.
You guys are normally really diligent on the way that you prep your years, right?
Yeah, we actually are. We try to put in a lot of work in the beginning of every season, like once half a year. So in the beginning of the year and in the middle of the year, we have like a planning day where we go up to see and we watch or we see what are the tournaments that is coming up for us and where should we go, how should we do with this and that and stuff like that. So yeah, it would be really nice for us.
Okay, and with this, Striker, just on this overall stuff from ESL here, is there anything that sticks out to you? Anything you want to sink your teeth into?
It's just a little bit concerning to me that it kind of adds travel days, especially in between like in the middle of the tournament, which is not ideal, especially if your angle is that you want to give teams more time to prepare for the final. Like considering they have to travel potentially between continents, which is probably what essentially has to happen at some point if it's going to be like Beijing when they said a North American one and stuff like that. Obviously, you're losing like 2 days just on travel between the groups and the playoffs. So it's just like suddenly you only have like another 3 days. One of them is probably like a content day where they have to do some auxiliary content for the stream, some interviews and stuff like that, like a media day. And so essentially you only have like 1 or 2 days to actually prepare for the final or for the playoffs.
Sure.
So it's like,
well, that's more time than they would normally have to prepare for the finals.
Sure. I can definitely get behind that. I get it. There's definitely certain amount of time, but you're taking a lot of it away through having to travel in between the separate stages.
Yeah, I start to look at this more like it's like a fight night type thing for the playoffs, right? Like the amount of with that lead-in time right now, just for people who want to understand it from my perspective coming into an event, I go into a tournament, I see 16 teams, I get sent the opening matchups, and they go, "Hey, Chad, what do you think?" And most of the time, like that's the day before the event or a couple days before the event that, I'm being asked what my storylines are and stuff. With lead-in time of 4 days or 5 days before, the content that we could build or the storylines that we could sell over different pieces of social media content, or we could do more with the players, with the teams. We can see what the key was Astralis in the group stage. They had these matches, but what was the key for them? gla1ve was having fantastic games. He had these impact rounds. Okay, let's highlight that. Let's make some content that we can push. From like a storytelling perspective, you're going to get a lot more of that. And I think that potentially going into the playoffs as well, now everybody will have to do an Astralis. You can't go into a 4-team playoff and have not prepared for the other 3 teams. Like you should be up to scratch on everything that's going on within that 3-day downtime that you're getting, right? So I'm hoping we get a higher quality of games out of this and a higher quality that we can sell. Because that's the biggest thing. Right now, it's tournament. If we get a chance to like go, okay, group stage, break, everyone take a breather. Fuck. Can you believe it? Heroic just made it through the group stage and they're ready to take on Astralis. Oh shit, we've got that storyline we can dive into. Oh shit, let's find those tweets. Let's find those comments that they made on the Danish news. Let's do all this. Story now built. Instead of just like waking up and going, fuck, man, we just finished at 1 a.m. and
more best of things.
I can't wait to get stuck back in there. Oh, good morning and welcome back. Like we get an actual chance to tell a story now. Well, I'm hoping we get an actual chance to tell the story. That's the biggest thing for me.
I think Launders made a good point at one of his videos. It's not just about like ESL or any of the TOs. Like people outside of the official production can also chip in and bring in cool content, highlight cool storylines. Like he is doing like some demo analysis now. Is he's like, okay, now you watch Perfecto, you find out something like for more casual people. You find out some like interesting tidbit about his style of play. Then you go, oh, let's watch this Navi game. Let's see how he does. Just to give people more interesting things to watch and not just be like, okay, some guy killed some other guy killed some other guy, bomb planted. Okay, GG boys. So someone won. So
how much content is up in the schedule? How many content days do you have for a tournament
at the moment?
Yeah, in the schedule.
For the next year, I think it's just like
year.
1 day before the group stage, 1 day like before the playoffs. But that doesn't mean like people can still be working in the background on stuff, right?
On this here, it says, so I assume there'd be a travel day, then a rehearsal day like normal before. It doesn't actually say it on this thing, but then between the finish of groups and the start of the playoffs, it goes day off plus content production, day off plus content. Now, that might not be the teams being involved in the content production. That might just be ESL or us, like the talent, doing that content. But those days there, and then the 1 day before, so the Friday before the Saturday Sunday playoff, it says media and rehearsal. So I assume like that'd be your normal interviews and shit that you guys would do, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
But yeah, overall, we still have to worry about all the other tournaments, right? And how it clashes and how we're still gonna have Flashpoint, we're still gonna have Blast. Teams are still gonna have to choose what they want to play in and when. And that's going to be the biggest thing because there will still always be burnout. There'll still be a chance to play in as many tournaments as you want. I think teams just need to be a little bit more careful in what they decide to play in. Do we have anything else on this, or can we get to the fun section where we ask
Let's
Glaive
go
all
to
the
the fun
community
section.
questions? All right.
Let's have fun.
All right, Lucas, play the bumper, all right? All right, Playtime Prof, take it away, my friend.
Okay, I need to address the chat because amazing stuff has been going on. First, like even people maybe watch this on YouTube, so they don't know. Like gla1ve always in chat. So when gla1ve was like saying how he loves to watch gla1ve demos, gla1ve is also a notorious Astralis fanboy, like literally all the time, just dreaming about being an Astralis. So that was kind of fun early on. Now people are like counting how much gla1ve blinks per second and translating into Morse code, and allegedly also making fun, of course, of coldzera's mom. Some guy just said that through Morse code, you confirmed that coldzera mom is speaking the truth. So
okay,
that's all the stuff that I'm like listening to, actually reading while Sponge is doing his classic monologues. So questions, a lot of questions. I think there's also a fun question from a guy named, just give me a second, Lance. He says, which member of Astralis is most likely to have told Zonic they love the book but haven't actually read it?
Oh my god. I don't know. I think maybe I'm the only one that haven't read the book. So, but I didn't tell him that I loved it because he knows that I didn't read it yet. But who would do that? Oh, that's tough. That's tough. I think maybe Dupree.
I was gonna say Dupree too, man.
Dupree. Just because he's like, he's funny. He could say something like that just in joke.
Other questions. So we touched on a bunch of the things about like Woobski, Xyp9x, blah blah. There's a question. How should a team practice and tools you use in practice? Because we had that episode with gla1ve, which I thought was pretty interesting, where you talked a lot about like refrag, using analysts and stuff like that. Do you guys do similar stuff?
Yeah, we use different tools to both prepare and to watch our own games. And for practicing and practice games, we just play, right? We don't use any tools, but to prepare and to watch our own games, of course, we have some tools that we use. So yeah, that is pretty good, and I think that's pretty important.
So
you have something
custom
special
made,
that nobody else has?
Yeah.
What do you think?
You don't look. I'm sure you do. I'm just curious about your answer.
Yeah, we have this program that nobody haven't seen before, and it's amazing. And I will never tell you about it.
Now, I don't know if this is some like gla1ve level mind games with people, just like people are now going to start sniffing around and seeing what's going on, or if he's being serious.
Yeah, but a lot of people is telling me they don't know when I'm trolling, and yeah, it's up for you to decide if I'm trolling or not.
Okay.
This is along the lines of what cadiaN was saying the last episode a week ago, when he was talking about how you have to set up the mind games, like you have to have that personality and you know, have it known about you for a long time so that people have just no idea, like, is he joking, is he not, what is what is happening? And you are definitely one of those people, by the way, for sure.
I know.
Okay, so there's a question. This is like a general, not very specific, but I think it could be interesting to see what you're going to reply. A guy asks, who is the biggest impact player? So it doesn't have to be in your team, but just in general, who do you think has the most impact?
Most impact. That's pretty tough. I would say a guy like Electronic has a lot of impact. Now he's just been playing really well the last couple of weeks. So yeah, he has a lot of impact. CSgo has a lot of impact as well. I would say Simple has a lot as well, but he's a bit more laid back, a bit more defensive sometimes, especially if he's having like a tough time. He goes a bit more defensive, right? But I would say what?
Bit more baity.
That's what you said. I mean, CSgo, Electronic, I think Device has a lot of impact as well. He's a great player.
Especially in eco rounds, right?
That's mainly me.
Someone has to kill him.
Actually, Device has been playing like some aggressive rifling recently on the T side? Is this just me just seeing things that have always been there? Is this like something specific recently?
I think he's just mad at all the guys on Reddit telling him to only get eco frags, so now he goes offensive with the rifle.
It does feel, though, the serious question for a second, though, it does feel like you guys since you've come back, your playstyle is a lot more, you guys are willing to take a lot more fights than what you looked in the past. Is that like a symptom of Magisk in the team, like doing the in-game leading?
I think it's more about it's a meta thing.
Okay.
Everybody is really aggressive, and I remember cadiaN also said it last time, if players are playing really aggressive against you, you can't just fall back and play defensive. You have to be right up in their head. So that's what we try to do as well. Like everybody is just like you see on train. Everybody that plays the T side, they throw the smokes out, they flash out, and they can be everywhere. And at CT, if you play defensive and you don't throw a lot of grenades and just get into their head, then you will have no control over the map. So a lot of CT sides you now have, because people is so good at using utility on the T side as well, you have to be more aggressive on the CT side to get out information. Let's say that I am playing Yard on CT on Nuke, and they throw the smokes out in Yard. Let's say I go die, I get the 1-for-1 trade, I kill one of their players and they kill me, but I see 3 other guys. Then we know that there will be 3 in Yard, probably 1 in the lobby, right? But when the smokes is going out and they are not there anymore, we will now know that there was 3 in Yard and maybe they can't rotate to center or to lobby. So the information plays is really important right now, especially on maps like Train, Nuke. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's a good little tidbit to have. We got any more, Prof?
I mean, I have to ask this if people are spamming into this chat as well. Have you got media training?
Oh, wait, I just gotta check with Astralis. You here? Okay, yeah, I can say it. Okay, fine, that's good. I wouldn't say we have gotten media training, but of course, sometimes we get told this would be stupid to talk about right now. And I think that's just really, who wouldn't do that? You have 5 or 6 important figures in the Counter-Strike scene. So of course we need to know that when we can't talk about something. But the only times where Astralis put out tweets for us, that is sponsored tweets. Nothing like that you saw before. With the Xyp9x welcome. The Xyp9x welcome was just because we wanted him to give him a huge welcome. We wanted to do like a social media takeover with the Xyp9x welcome. So we made different tweets for all of us, and we decided ourselves what we wanted and stuff like that. So Nikolai picked this, and then he just copied it, and he copied with his name as well, and he put it into Twitter, and he instantly wrote us on Messenger. I just fucked up, guys. I fucked up. I don't know. Yeah, he was so angry at himself. Like it was like 1 hour after he was so angry at himself, and we were just like, nothing is going to happen. You deleted it instantly. Nobody will see it. Yeah, in 2 minutes it was.
Because that's what happens on social media.
Yeah, exactly.
You definitely have like 200,000 followers.
Yeah. Someone's gonna catch it.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's a question from Lucas Anderson 22. He says, I don't know who this guy is. Probably it's just some random guy. Surely not a pro player. Says, when is Boobski coming back to the lineup? So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, now I just said earlier that he is hyper aggressive. So if he relax a little bit, don't drink too much caffeine, and then you will play a bit more defensive. Then you're straight into the lineup, boy.
Okay. There we go. Oh, that's easy as that. Yeah. I had one that I wanted to ask more about, like your. When you came back, how long did it take until just mechanically that you felt that you could play at the top level again?
That's a good question. I feel like it's really easy for me to get back into my game individually. I'm not saying I'm playing like my best right now, because for sure I ain't, but still I feel like I can put up numbers with some of the good players out there. So I feel like it didn't take long for me. I think the AWP was the hardest thing for me to get back into. I feel like I didn't know my sensitivity when I played the AWP. Luckily, I don't play it that much. But the rifle, and the movement and the flashbangs and stuff like that. Of course, there was new grenades that I needed to remember, but overall mechanics, skill-wise, game-wise, I don't think it was that tough.
Like a week, 2 weeks?
Yeah, I would say a week.
That's fucking insane.
Yeah, a
Like
week, and I actually didn't touch it for 3 months.
That's crazy. Like I guess like the muscle memory and just like, having that mouse back in your hand and all that, like the game hasn't changed a lot in terms of updates and all that kind of stuff, right? So all in all, it's very similar in that sense. And I guess before, you're obviously every single day of your life, right? Living and breathing that shit.
Yes, exactly.
Now, more current meta stuff as well. There was a bunch of conversation about the org. Kirby was using it a lot, but before that, Heroic with Tessus and Nico, for example, on Nuke were using it. Simple using it on Nuke when he can't afford an AWP. Do you think the org, like we're going to see, like I'm not going to say like an org main on teams now, but do you think it's something we're going to be seeing on a lot of CT sides?
Yeah, I think so. I think actually the org is pretty good, especially on some positions. If you're like the rotate guy on Nuke, it can be really viable. On Train, Ivy, it can be really viable as well. Inside Train on the CT side, if you're playing retake and stuff like that, you can use the weapon if you want to play around a specific way. So I actually think the gun is really good, and I'm not too sure. For me, it feels like when I play with it and I scope, I have a tough time playing with it. But when I don't scope, it's really tough. It's really easy to control the spray. So you can actually get a lot of multi kills.
Okay. Prof, we got any more viewer questions?
I think that is all we can fit in this one.
Okay. All right. Well, Strike, you got anything before we wrap this one up?
Nope.
All right, cool. gla1ve, I've been opening up the floor to our guests in recent times because if there's anything on your chest, if there's anything that you want to say to anybody out there, maybe there's like a fan or there's a player you want to call out, or you want to talk some shit, or you want to thank some sponsors, or you want to kiss some babies, whatever you want to do, now would be the time.
Yeah, you see the Astralis logo and all the sponsors. I think this is enough. I don't have to say anything else.
Perfect. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you very much for joining us for episode 11 of HLTV Confirmed. Thank you, gla1ve, for joining us on the show here. It's been fantastic having you. Fantastic picking your brain.
Thank you, guys.
And guys, we're going to be back next week, but we're going back to the 3 p.m. start time. We don't have a guest just yet. We'll try and lock one in ASAP. I'm working on a couple of names out there. But we'll go back to the 3 p.m. start times for the next couple of weeks at least. And then when New York finishes, we'll mix some things around. Might have a couple of extra days here and there. As always, anchor.fm/HLTV. There'll be no rerun tonight because this one started at 8 o'clock on the nose. But look, I just, before in older episodes, I used to say, call your mom or do something nice. But for a lot of people who are watching this, and if you're in Europe right now, or maybe even the rest of the world, you're probably going through the same kind of upswing right now with this coronavirus stuff that everybody is experiencing. And I've been getting a lot more messages recently coming on through like my email and DMs and stuff of people just, saying they're having a bit of a rough time of it all. Now, I'm not here to tell you how to live your life or anything along those lines, and I'm definitely not the person to do that. I'm a fucking idiot. But what I do want to say is this is an unprecedented time. And for everybody out there, if you are having a rough time of it, just know that, that this is hopefully temporary and hopefully we get through it. But whatever you're doing, whatever you're thinking, this is something that none of us have had to experience before. And, a bit of positive mindset can really go a long way. As much bullshit as it sounds, I used to be a fucking negative Nancy every day of my life, but just channeling a little bit of positive energy and being kind to yourself, positive self-speak, it can go a long way. So look after yourselves, find those who love you, and we'll close the show down. We'll be back next week. Good night.